Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Hang Up here on the line. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Thank you for showing up. Los Angeles is burning. This is footage of Kevin Balling's house. Kevin is the director of the Secular Student Alliance. You guys have met him through the programs and stuff related to the line, as well as other efforts. I was contacted today by Andrew Seidel to let me know that Kevin lost his home. He escaped with his husband and their dogs and the clothes on their back and nothing else. Now, I spoke to Kevin briefly via text. They are insured, but we are going to be working with organizations that are doing a fundraiser to help out the individuals in California who are suffering through this absolutely devastating set of fires. Before the show started, we were talking about what the actual cause is, and I'm not going to pretend to know or pretend that anybody else knows, but Arden will be putting graphics up on the screen. Some of them will probably cover my face, but there's information there for the people who are seeking shelter, who are needing to evacuate, who may have lost homes or suffering in other ways as well. If you can't read it, it is Atheists United. The text number is 323-666-4258, and their address is 2535 West Temple Street, Los Angeles, California, 90026. They are setting up shelters and taking donations and other things. It's more important that you see this information than anything having to do with my face, especially if you're in a position where you can help them out. Now, I spoke to Kevin, like I said, in text, but I've also heard that lawyer, debater, and atheist activist Eddie Tabash, who I've known for years, has also lost his home in the Palisades. And while Kevin was explaining to me that the Palisades is a more upper middle class type of area, of the 36 homes on Kevin's block, only 3 of them are still standing in that area of Altadena. And he described Altadena, because I've never been there, as a much more working class neighborhood than the Palisades, tucked into the foothills that, because of this fire, really doesn't exist anymore. It's absolutely shocking. And this would, at any other moment in history, be the only thing anybody was focused on. And I know that Governor Newsom has declared a disaster and is seeking relief. I'm sure that FEMA and other organizations are working hard to do what they can to help the citizens of California. I know the insurance companies are already working on some of this, but not everybody's insured. Not everybody's in a position where they can even get out safe. They are evacuating in stages. I saw Yvette post that she's waiting for her turn to evacuate if needed. And that's important because they need to evacuate in stages, because if you just take off and block the roads, you may be preventing the people who need to egress even more than you do from being able to do so. In a world where Los Angeles is burning, there are also wars in Gaza and Ukraine. And while we wait for our returning president to be sentenced for his hush money crimes, and as we skim through the Matt Gaetz Ethics Committee report on the 12 women he paid over $90,000 to for sex or drugs, including a 17-year-old, as we stare in disbelief as future President Trump suggests that he won't be able to promise that he's not going to use the United States military to take over Greenland and Panama, as he publicly suggests that Canadians should encourage Canada to become the 51st state in the United States, I was thinking the immortal words of Socrates, who said, "I drank what?" And bonus points to anybody who gets the reference. It's just too much. And this is what my guest and I were talking about. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Dara, the Magic Skeptic, my friend and teacher from across the pond. And you were commenting to me just before we started that it's great to be here, and we hope we can do stuff. We hope we can encourage people to raise money. But there are fires all over the planet, and literal and figurative fires. What do you pay attention to? What's going on in the UK that has, you guys distressed. What's your primary focus right now?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm delighted to be here again, Matt. It's an honor to share the stage with you. Thanks to everybody on the channel for believing me and having me back. That means a great deal. So while I'm absolutely delighted to be here, the delight is equaled only by the sadness, if you'll forgive me for saying so, with the introduction you gave. I mean, goodness gracious me, what do you focus on? The world appears to be falling apart, and simultaneously there are those who are telling us that there's a God and he loves us all, a divine overseer who's, taking care of us all. And I don't know about you, but it's pretty hard to see it that way. In the UK right now, there's some pretty harsh snow and ice, but I daren't compare it to what you've just spoken about, Matt. I mean, words fail. My heart breaks for those people and losing their homes, burning to the ground. I mean, there's nothing I'm going to be able to say that captures the sheer depravity of everything that's happening right now. I don't know what to say, man. I'm lost for words. Forgive me, and I'm not often lost for words. The people who know me best know that it's hard to get me to shut the hell up. But
it's the same here.
On days like this, I just gotta doff my cap to the universe and say, "You win."
Yeah, I mean, we're both. Oh my gosh, I'm already starting to mimic your accent. It's one problem of being a bit of a chameleon and the fact that I've grown up watching, tons of British TV, and I love going over to the UK when I can. It's as my I'm mired in conflict so much that I think part of my brain tries to avoid conflict, and it'll make me like, I'll mimic an accent. Yeah, your mum's in Ireland and you're in England, and it's I just can't help it. So hopefully nobody takes offense. But in reality, what we're talking about is the frustration and futility that comes along with watching people in stress and in terrible situations. It's one of the things that I think religions have both been really good at and really bad at, in that they have something that can provide people comfort, or make it seem like you're providing comfort even if you're not, or make it seem like you're doing something. Because, if there's a God up there watching, then thoughts and prayers might matter. But in reality, we're well aware that thoughts and prayers don't mean fuck all.
You remind me, Matt. Sorry, forgive me. I cut
you
off there. Go ahead.
No, continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you remind me, I encountered a phrase recently, the phrase being slacktivism. I'm sure your listeners have heard of it. I'm sure you've heard of it. But truthfully, I had only encountered it recently. And slacktivism is, the social media approach to activism, where you just post something on social media and think that your good deed is done. Now, don't get me wrong, social media can be a very useful tool, and I'd rather people posted about things they care about than not. But let's pretend that posting on social media is a significant blow in the fight against whatever you're campaigning against. And when you talk about prayer and the power of prayer, I feel like prayer was the first slacktivism. It's a form of pretending to have done something, whilst in reality you haven't really accomplished anything, assuming that the theistic proposition is false. And I think there's good reason to assume that, or at the very least lack a belief in God and so forth. But yeah, I feel like prayer is slacktivism in a religious coat, if you will.
Yeah, and it's one of the things it's become socially acceptable, in the same way of saying, what church do you go to? Why don't you visit our church? It's just assumed that everybody is like you. And if we've accomplished anything over the years with programs like this, it's interacting with people who might presume that we're the weird ones, because we are fewer in number. We are not represented, by the majority. And in many cases, some of us come from incredibly strong Christian backgrounds. You know, I'm friends with many former pastors. I was going to be a pastor, in which case I would be a former pastor or former preacher, depending on how you want to label it. What I will say is that when I was a believer, I'm not sure that saying I'll pray for you or I'll pray about this ever brought me any comfort. Because while I believed and I was surrounded by believers, it still felt like believers were constantly making excuses to each other in order to keep the doubt at a simmer. And so it would be like, you know, God always answers prayer, but sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes the answer is wait. And if you're not sure which one it is, you just need to stay firm with God and wait and find out. And if it turns out that the answer was no, then God had a good reason for it saying no, which never explains why God doesn't actually say no. Like God doesn't actually say, thank you for your prayer. I've decided not to fulfill your request or anything else. And if it happens later, then God was saying wait or wait for something better or whatever. Every problem that we have as human beings, everything that terrifies us, everything that shocks us to our core, happens to believers as well. There's not some unique set of conditions that applies to only atheists or only Scientologists or only Muslims or only. We all are stuck on this ball. There are parents who, of every religious view who have lost children, and those that are involved in religions will reach out to the ministers, they'll reach out to God. How does this make sense? How is it that, my beautiful child that I loved more than anything, why did God take them away? And depending on which religion you're in, you might get a glib answer that is not, like for example, even within Christianity, you're going to get non-biblical answers about, well, God needed another angel, which nowhere in the Bible is there anything, even a hint that a dead human being becomes an angel or anything roughly like it. But this is the shit people make up once there's a fantasy land to point to, as long as we can kind of share. Well, we don't know why God did it, but it had a purpose. And maybe God wanted to give you that child for a very short period of time in order to teach you a lesson. Wait a minute. So God answered my prayer to have a kid and then took that kid away to teach me a lesson. No wonder these people are still advocating for corporal punishment and capital punishment and all kinds of. It is an oversimple. Everything is boiled down and distilled down to its simplest thing. And when the answer should be, I don't know, but let's go find out, their answer is, I don't know, but God knows, and that's all I need to know.
All of these things are just methods of rendering the belief unfalsifiable or untestable. It's like the fortune teller's gambit. The fortune teller's prediction has either come true or it hasn't come true yet. And I see the exact same kind of, call it apologetics with prayer. It's what you said, Matt. The prayer either has been answered or it hasn't been answered yet, or the answer was no. In other words, there is no result. There is no data set that could possibly falsify the theistic view, depending on which theist you're speaking to. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely, I think, certain religious beliefs and tenets that could be principally falsified. But when it comes to prayer, prayer is one of those things that can't be falsified because the data set can always be made to fit with the presupposition that prayer is effectual, that it works. It's just that sometimes the answer is no. I see the exact same thing with fortune tellers and purveyors of woo. The techniques and the, shall we say, psychological sleight of hand isn't any different. The only thing that changes is the content of the belief. Whether you're talking about fortune tellers, prayer, or something else, it's always the same. How can we make this belief unfalsifiable? And I'm not suggesting, by the way, that is the intent. I don't think that an honest believer in prayer is attempting to establish an unfalsifiable worldview. I think they just incidentally do that. But, that's just my 2 cents.
I tell you, we're gonna try to maintain some sense of normalcy here on the show. We are going to be taking calls. I'm going to take the first call right off the bat. And normally theists always go to the top of the queue, but I've decided we're going to break the rules for a second and take an atheist caller first. And then after this call is over, I'll have an announcement or several announcements, including things related to the show. But please remember, we will read all super chats over $10, and I will be, as soon as I get all the information on the fundraiser for California, I will be donating a portion of my portion of tonight's super chats to help out the individuals, the secular individuals that are normally helping us, people like Kevin, people like Eddie, who need assistance. We'll be helping through those charity efforts there as well. Keep that in mind. That is not a bait and switch to get you to donate more. By all means, follow the links, call the numbers, donate directly to them so that YouTube doesn't get a portion. But I'm just saying a portion of what I'm getting tonight out of tonight's super chats is going to go to that. And that it might be the difference between me sitting around talking about stuff being viewed as slacktivism and then actually doing things tangible that help. But we'll see. Our first caller for today is an atheist with a particularly interesting and I think straightforward question. Gene's calling from Texas. Pronouns are he, him. What do you got for us, Gene? Are you there?
Oh, that's my apologies. I had it muted in the pre-show.
Purely fictional.
Gene, you'll have to start over.
With a spectacular statistical anomaly. Billions and billions.
Gene.
Yes.
Gene.
I'm sorry.
Gene.
Yes.
Gene. Nobody could hear you because you were muted on the producer end, so you have to start over from the beginning. Welcome to the show, Gene. I can hear you now.
It's a pleasure to speak to you, Matt and Dara.
Pleasure.
My question is due to the twist ending of the book Contact by Carl Sagan, which was unfortunately not used in the movie. Would a spectacular statistical anomaly, billions and billions of digits after the decimal in pi, be enough to convince you of the existence of God? I can tell you that it wouldn't me, but it was a really cool ending.
But also, I hate that ending.
You're aware of the ending.
Oh, yes. And I think it was a particularly weak attempt on Sagan's part. And here's the thing. How can pi have a statistical anomaly at all? Pi simply is.
Exactly.
Pi is a ratio, and the digits of pi are whatever they would be. The only way to get a statistical anomaly is to say, here's the norm. This is different from the norm. Pi merely is. What you would need is if pi were to change, and then you'd have to ask, how the hell does that happen? So exactly. I don't even know what a statistical anomaly within pi means because I don't see it as a possibility. But for the people who suggest that, let's say there's 57 billion digits in pi, that if you were to enter them into a computer, produced a screensaver that said, I'm God, hello, I'm God, hello, and it ran on, the thing is that pi is an irrational number, so there's no end. And if there's no end, then there's not a sequence of digits that would be both possible in an irrational number and relevant. So like, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that there's something in there that could be run as code somewhere on something or whatever the anomaly is. Where are you at, Dara?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're asking Dara?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Sure. So yeah, my thought on this is perhaps a simple one, but I think relevant nonetheless. So these arguments, which begin with anomaly X, therefore God, all seem to have the same flaw in my view, and that is essentially a textbook argument from incredulity. They all tend to boil down to something like, I don't know how to explain this, therefore insert my chosen woo here, insert my chosen deity here. And I don't hear persuasive responses to that problem. People just presuppose their deity or their selected woo, and then when they encounter anomalies, they assume that those anomalies are accounted for by the deity that they believe in. The classic example that I think Hume referred to was the writing in the sky, the stars in the sky. If a message appears in the sky that says, "I am the Lord your God," or something like that, that seems like, and let's just call it what it is for starters. That doesn't, in the words of Graham Oppy, that doesn't appear to be on the cards for our world. But let's suppose for a second it did happen. The truth would be, if that occurred, I would have no idea how it happened. The fact that the stars form a message that happens to be compatible with a particular faith wouldn't demonstrate that that faith is responsible. The data, using another abductive explanation, could equally be accounted for by powerful aliens that manipulated and deceived us, for example. And people will say, "Oh, that's unbelievable." Well, so too is an unembodied mind that created the universe. You don't just get to say that the aliens hypothesis is unbelievable. You don't get to just respond with incredulity to aliens when you are simultaneously tabling an unembodied, all-powerful creator mind. That's called having it all your own way. So anyway, I've said quite a bit, so I'll table it there. But yeah, I think the problem is the same across the board for all of these anomaly arguments.
I do agree. You might imagine, of course I agree. And I just thought it was so freaking ironic that he wrote this. It was an idea that he and his wife came up with apparently around 1980. And made for, I thought it was at least kind of a cool twist ending, but it would hardly be enough to convince me. I might think, wow, that's really nifty that something like that is there, but so what? You know?
Yeah, being a great scientist doesn't make you a great philosopher.
Right.
I love Sagan.
So do I.
I love Sagan, and I loved Contact.
Yeah.
I love Contact, both the book and the film. I think in many ways the film, to the extent that the film skipped that ending and went with a slightly different twist, I thought that was really well done. The problem with what Sagan was doing is, if I remember right, and I did review this a minute ago, Ellie finds a series of digits in pi after converting it to base 11.
That's correct, sir.
That when plotted form a perfect circle, except that's not possible either. It's not, a perfect circle isn't possible. So already the description is wrong. And if you can convert things to base 11, why not base 12? Maybe it does a triangle in base 12, or base 17 in base, 23, it runs Doom, there's nothing particularly impressive. There's nothing particularly impressive in an infinite sequence of numbers of something that, when converted to a different base, plots out at a rough approximation of a circle. And so nothing about that ending, or nothing about that portion of this, I didn't like a bit of it. And when I went and saw the movie, I was glad they didn't include it.
That's too bad. Well, I mean, it was like, admittedly, I did miss it. I thought, I think that this was the kick-ass twist ending that they had cooked up, and then unfortunately it wasn't used and probably disappointed him. But I do see your point, because it was weak, unfortunately. And it also has the problem of, why would God hide a message like this, billions of digits after the decimal in pi, that it takes thousands and thousands of years to finally find? Using an artist's computer. Ridiculous.
Let's imagine for a second, and just give Carl the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that there's some set of circumstances under which it's fair to say we've discovered an anomaly in pi, and you convert it to a base, and it plots out as a nearly perfect circle, or as close as you can get in space, not a true perfect circle. What reason could someone come up with that would explain that the reason it does that is because it was an intentionally hidden message from God, and not a mathematical anomaly related to infinite series, not aliens. I mean, that was kind of where they went with aspects of contact. Is in the movie, it was all, we don't know. Even after all that happens, we don't know. And that's why I liked the little twist in that, because we don't know, but there's shit we're hiding from the public about this,
Definitely. Yeah. I just thought it was so ironic that he, a stalwart atheist, outspoken as a matter of fact, and his wife would do something like this. What was the point of that?
I think that when you're writing a book and you're dealing with, what kind of, we hear things like this all the time. People, when I first saw your call, I didn't even notice that you were calling in as an atheist at the beginning. And I was like, ooh, because you know what this entire scenario is exactly like? Equidistant letter codes and finding hidden messages in the Bible and other things like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely.
We're pattern-seeking animals.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Let's convert it to a different base and see if we get a message. And if we don't, then we can convert it to a different base. Well, how many bases are you allowed to attempt to convert something to? Because if there's infinitely many bases, then if you convert pi to base pi, it's now just one.
It's just another way of getting multiple guesses. If you were allowed to have think of it this way, right? If I held up a deck of playing cards right now, and I took one playing card out of the deck, and I asked you to name a playing card, let's say you named the Queen of Hearts. If I flip over the playing card and it's the Queen of Hearts, that would be pretty damn astounding. But let's imagine, thank you, Matt, for the visual accompaniment. But let's imagine after you named your card, I didn't flip over my card and I said, no, guess again. Well, how many guesses are you allowed to have and it still be a miracle or it still be stupefying, right? Because that's kind of what's happening with this kind of mathematical plotting and pattern seeking that goes on. Matt mentioned that happens with the Bible, and he's absolutely spot on, of course. But people do this with math, they do it with the Bible, they do it with other holy texts, they do it with patterns, they do it with everything, because we're pattern seeking animals. If you divide this, multiply this, get the square root of this, you get a number that's eerily similar to this, or you get the date of when 9/11 happened, or you get the date. It's just garbage. It is mental masturbation. Forgive me for saying so and for being so crude, but that is what it is. And I see no reason to take it seriously, although I'm happy to have my mind changed. But there would need to be some kind of criteria by which we judged this stuff. Because as Matt quite rightly pointed out, how many times do you get to change it and it still be miraculous or serendipitous or what have you? I mean, this seems to be constrained only by people's creativity, and that's a problem.
Definitely.
Just one last thing, by the way, before we table this. Forgive me, Gene. One last thing, because when I said earlier that being a great scientist doesn't necessarily mean that you're a great philosopher, I wasn't intending on putting Carl Sagan down, because as Matt said,
he's dead.
I love Carl Sagan. I think Carl Sagan is awesome. And can I just give the audience a recommendation, although they've probably all read it already. But The Demon Haunted World is an absolutely brilliant book that everybody should read if they're interested in philosophy and the philosophy of religion and the nature of fallacious reasoning and so on. It is an excellent read. It is. I would say it would be a great text to give to an undergrad who was interested in skepticism and philosophy of religion and so on. So I'm not saying that Carl Sagan isn't a good philosopher. He's probably a better philosopher than I am. But even he is not above making mistakes. And I think that's there's a humility in that we can all learn from. We can all make mistakes, and I've made many, and so be it. None of us are infallible.
Except me.
Gotcha. Not a problem. But by the way, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I was impressed by two things. First of all, that Matt actually knew the ending of this book, which is, I find, mind-blowing, because most people don't. And his Irish accent, I thought, was awesome.
We're not careful.
I don't know that you're the best judge of. Yeah, I don't know that you're the
Listen,
best
hey,
judge of either, but
well, I don't know about that. I've been doing the Renaissance Festival since '85.
yes.
Okay, so I'm a Texan. Give me a break.
Awesome. Thanks, Gene. I appreciate the call.
Thanks, Gene.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. So, setting aside accents and magic stuff, it's a good thing you said Queen of Hearts, because that was just a stack of cards that were on the desk, and it's not a full deck, so it's possible you could have said something that I didn't have readily available.
There's another miracle.
I got
We
announcements.
just pulled off another miracle ourselves, Matt. I named one of
That's
the
true.
cards that still remained. There you go.
Yeah. And in a deck of 47, you pick one.
Not exactly miraculous. Yeah. I'm gonna have to work harder before I get in the Guinness book.
Well, we're going to be taking calls tonight. We'll get back to them in just a moment. I got a couple announcements to do. First of all, welcome to the line. This network is about call-in shows, and we do a bunch of them. On Sundays, we do the Sunday show at 2 o'clock Central, and we do the Sunday show after dark at 7 p.m. Central. And then on Mondays, we do Skeptalk. Tuesdays is Chewed Gum. Wednesdays, this show right here at the Hang Up. Thursdays is, I've forgotten what. Yes, the Transatlantic Call-In Show. That's going to be at 2 o'clock tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central with Arden and Luxander. This Friday, I'm doing a special Cus I Wanna with myself and Mandisa Thomas. So please, if you got nothing else to do on Friday night, come hang out with us on Friday night. We'll be doing it and having fun. The Sunday show at 2 p.m., I don't see a co-host listed here for Sunday at 2 p.m.
Nope, don't think we've decided yet.
Dara, you want to do the Sunday show?
Sign me up.
There you go. Assuming there wasn't somebody else going to do it, and we just hadn't written it down yet. If nothing else, we can have Dara back for the Sunday show. Next Monday, Skeptalk is going to be Forrest and Rob Palmer. Next Tuesday, Chewed Gum is going to be Alyssa and Eve. And then next Wednesday, I'll be back here with a hang up with another co-host. But the line is having a big reveal contest, and we're going to post this. It is for patrons, and you can become a patron for free as well. I don't know are you going to put this on screen, or am I just going to go through it?
Yep. I mean, I figured you could read a few of the rules, cool. But yeah.
So we have a big announcement, and this is the announcement on the screen. Right now, there's only one word visible in the announcement. You get one guest per post on Patreon. Each day, we will add a new word to the added phrase, which consists of 8 words in total. The first person to correctly guess the entire phrase wins a $50 gift certificate to linemerch.com. Multiple guesses on the same post will result in disqualification, and then the next eligible person will win. So if you thought you figured it out, everything except for one word, and you just started spamming by changing the one word, and until you finally got it, you're disqualified even if you get it. But you can guess once per post. This is open to any patron, free patrons, all of it. And the $50 gift card must be used in a single transaction and will be sent as a promo code via direct message. So huge opportunity for you to get some of that sick line merch that y'all want. We've had our coffee cup contest. We've had various shirts and other things. This is going to be cool. We are looking for, it's a way to kind of make sure people are aware that we're promoting this new thing, which I would say out loud, but if I say any more words on there, I will have to get fired. I mean, I just can't do that. But here we go. In the meantime, we've got theist callers, and that's always where I like to start. So Brian in Illinois is a theist, pronouns are he, him, calling in to ask a question about rights. So Brian, welcome. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I haven't watched you guys for a while, and I just got to say, is that no matter what Dara says, I love that accent. in Southside Irish. I miss it. And Matt, I'm so disappointed that you shaved your beard.
Well, I think I look more like me now than I did before, although I didn't dislike the beard at all. It was just, yeah. Anyway, now that we're done talking about appearances, what have you got for us?
And accents.
No, I just, here's one of the things that, like, you know, I've called him in the past, and, like, I don't know if you remember, like, me and you always don't get along very well. But one of the things is, like, I come from a very different perspective than most people in the West, and it's kind of funny to me because, like, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the subtitle of what your thing was, but it was like, where is God or something of those lines. And my point is like, no, that's fine, I understand. But my point being is, like, where can you find rights? Rights don't actually exist. It's like a metaphysical thing. It's a concept, and I think we can all agree that, like,
Brian, rights are abstractions.
Yeah, yes.
So what?
But my point being is that there, according to Christian theology and understanding, is you can never see the source, the arche, the like where. So it's kind of like you guys on the line are always asking about, like, evidence for God, but you're asking for material evidence of something that most
no, Brian.
Okay.
Brian, I don't need you.
Fine.
Brian, when I interrupt you, I don't need you to, no. That's just interrupting me further. I don't need you to tell us what we do here. When I ask, why do people believe? I want them to tell me why they believe. And if they believe for reasons that don't have any material evidence, then we can discuss that. I'm not only here asking for material evidence. And if that's what you thought, then you have fundamentally misunderstood. I want to know why people believe and then have a discussion about whether or not their reasons are in fact good or not. You were calling in to say, where's the material evidence for rights? And what I was going to point out is rights are codified and protected by governing bodies. They are abstractions. They are not concretes. And therefore, just like number systems and other conventions, they are constructs. There's no evidence for their existence as things because they do not exist as things. Why is that relevant to your view about God?
Because I appreciate, because it's actually funny, because I ask people all the time about, like, where do rights exist, and I appreciate your answer that, like, you actually understand that they're just concepts that we're actually, like, we appreciate and we codify in law, and it's an abstraction that we
is God an abstraction?
I thought you just said what you just said. I'm sorry.
Is God an abstraction?
Oh, no. But
then where's the evidence for God?
So that's where things. So, like, you know, I noticed that you're having and you're showing, like, 2 days where like it's something about reason. Where's, like, reason. The thing is with reason. I
don't understand a thing in the sentence that you just said. You notice that I'm having what show in 2 days?
You're having, like, you're having a show with that, like, I have it on my YouTube that, like, upcoming. You're having a show about, like, when will reason prevail or something like that.
Okay,
but, like, the problem is
Brian, stop. Ignore the titles of the shows.
Okay.
It's not relevant.
I understand. The reason I was bringing it up is
where's the evidence for God?
Can I go with where I was going really quick, and then you're saying the evidence for God?
I answered your question. I answered your. Hang on. Don't tell me to fucking hold on, Brian. That's never going to work. I answered your question, and then I asked you one in reply. Is what you're saying going to in any way be an answer to that question?
Yes. It's leading to it, and that's what I'm trying to say. So
we'll lead to it quicker.
I will. See, the thing is like reason to, like, when we speak about reason, what we're doing is we're trying to be reasonable about what we understand. You need a baseline to be reasonable. For example, all throughout the world, there's different cultures and different concepts of what reasonable is.
Nope.
So to have like, what's that?
No. Reason transcends culture.
I disagree with that premise.
Then you're wrong.
I'll explain.
Then you are wrong, because the foundations of reason, the core foundations of reason, the logical absolutes, identity, non-contradiction, excludability, they are not tied to any culture or language, just like mathematics is not tied. As a matter of fact, shut up. The foundations of reason are derived directly from mathematical abstractions and set theory. This transcends language and culture.
I see, like that's like a premises that I disagree with, because I'll explain what I'm talking about.
It's not a premise. It's a conclusion that is supported by evidence. Is math different for native people in South America? Is it different for them than it is for native people in China?
I understand the math situation. What I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. That was a question. I didn't ask you if you understood. I asked if it was different.
Oh no! That I was
cool.
Agreeing with you.
Is logic different between those cultures?
Yes. And this
no,
is
it's
like
not.
Something that
No, Brian, you don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. Logic is the same, because logic is mathematics. 1 + 1 is 2 in base 2. But the identity of 1, the identity of plus, and the identity of equals is a function of logic.
Okay. I agree with you 100%. And
no, you don't.
No, I do. Just
no, you don't.
Okay.
I don't need to hear you out, Brian. You have no clue what you're talking about. But out of respect for the fact out of respect for the fact that Dara's been sitting there quietly, I'm going to let you continue so that he can shred you, because this is beneath my level of attention right now.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. So the thing is like, I would agree with you. And the problem is that, for example, right? I hear this all the time on the line. I don't know why I feel like I need abuse from you guys, but it's fun to me. Is we can all agree. You can say it's totally, we don't need a God to accept that murder is wrong, correct?
Brian, can we there's already a lot on the table, and now you want to get into moral realism versus moral anti-realism. So we might get that far, we might not, we'll see, but you've already put a lot on the table. So I would like, if you wouldn't mind, to go all the way back to the start of the call when you accused us of looking for empirical evidence for God. Now, I won't deny, Brian, that empirical evidence would be nice, but I do find it kind of frustrating. I'm assuming, Brian, you're a theist, right? So are you a Christian?
Yes.
You are. So do you believe presumably in the resurrection of Christ, yes?
Yes.
Do you believe that the empty tomb serves as evidence for that fact?
Yes.
Do you believe that the Shroud of Turin serves as evidence for the existence of Christ?
Don't care about the Shroud of Turin. Sorry.
Okay, fine. Okay, that we don't need to go with that example. There are other examples we could cite. Do you believe that the Bible is evidence, that historical parchments that have been found, the Dead Sea Scrolls and so on, serve as evidence for the truth of what you believe?
That's a confusing question for me, because like I'm not a Protestant, I'm not a fundamentalist. Do I think that there could be issues in the Bible, and like that's not a problem for me? Like the scriptures aren't my baseline for my belief.
Sure. No, I get that. I wasn't asking you, were you a biblical inerrantist at all? I'm just pointing out that you would look to the Bible or the scriptures for that it informs your beliefs to one extent or another, hence your Christianity. The point I'm trying to make to you, Brian, is that you do actually accept empirical evidence when it suits you. So pointing out that there's an empty tomb, for example, is an empirical finding, right? Now, whether or not it's true is a separate question, but it's an empirical claim. You're referring to a physical space, and you're talking about the emptiness of that space and how that serves as evidence for your conclusion that Jesus was bodily risen and so forth. The point I'm making, Brian, is that it's rather frustrating for me that you, as a theist, call in to suggest that we are, to one extent or another, being unfair when we ask for physical evidence for God. Meanwhile, you're more than happy to accept physical evidence when it points to the existence of a God from your perspective. But when we ask for physical evidence, you somehow give us a lecture and tell us that we're expecting too much or something like that. There's a tension there, Brian, that I think is unfair. It seems like you're trying to have it all your own way. I mean, surely if we were looking for empirical evidence, you could have shared the evidence of the empty tomb or some other physical evidence you might have. So principally speaking, Brian, you don't actually have a problem with empirical evidence for God. So why would you call an atheist talk show to complain about atheists looking for empirical evidence, something which we never admitted to, by the way? This is all on the assumption that we are, in fact, looking for exclusively empirical evidence. But isn't it rather strange that you would call in and hold our feet to the fire on that alleged desire when you, in fact, do have some empirical evidence that supports your worldview? Do you see the tension I'm drawing attention to here, Brian?
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate that. Actually, that's no. The only point I'm having is from what I've listened to the show over the time and what I've talked with other people is there are some things. So like the empirical evidence of Jesus being around is different than the Father, correct? And I'm sure you guys understand that. Like, I know Matt's a Baptist, and I don't know your background, but
Brian,
there's a difference between Jesus.
Brian, with respect, that's not relevant in the truest sense. I know where you're going with this, but the truth is, the physical evidence for Jesus is still something that you could share with somebody if what they were interested in was empirical evidence. I grant you easily that the mere fact of Jesus' existence doesn't necessarily confirm the existence of a heavenly Father. I grant you that easily. I'm just pointing out that if there were physical evidence that did confirm the Father, you would be very quick to share that with us. But it's precisely because you don't have physical evidence for the Father that you want to hold our feet to the fire on an alleged desire for it. What I'm drawing your attention to, Brian, is an inconsistency in your epistemology. You want to, trot out empirical evidence when it suits you, but you want to pretend that empirical evidence is irrelevant in other conversations when it doesn't suit you. There is a tension in your worldview, in your epistemology vis-a-vis physical evidence. What I'm saying is, don't come on here and tell us that you don't care about empirical evidence and that it's unreasonable to expect it, when you would be more than happy to accept it if indeed there was some for your heavenly Father that pointed powerfully in the direction of the existence of such a deity. That's what I'm saying. Are you telling me, Brian, that you wouldn't share that empirical evidence with us if you had it? I'm asking you that right now. Would you share empirical evidence of God the Father with us if you had it? Yes or no?
Okay, I'll answer that for sure. But that's what I'm saying.
You're about to not answer. You're about to not answer. Tell me yes or no, and then I'm happy to hear everything else you're going to say. I'll shut up, and I'm happy. I just want you to begin with a yes or a no, and then you can give me the rest of what you want to say. If you had empirical evidence of God the Father, would you share it with us on this show this evening?
So that's a hypothetical that is.
You're not, Brian. I want a yes or a no. Stop editorializing. I'm not interested in the meta.
Okay.
I want to hear a yes or a no. Would you share empirical evidence of God the Father with us if you had it?
Yes, just as you would show me the evidence
so you don't
that you
have
have
a problem
right.
with empirical evidence. Stop lecturing atheists.
No, I don't. I have no problem. I don't understand why you're saying that.
Brian, when somebody asks a question that begins with if, it is a complete waste of time and diversion to say, "Ooh, that's a hypothetical." We fucking knew it when we said the word "if." We are not kindergarten. Stop talking.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to stop talking now and let Dara decide when to hang up on you, because I don't appreciate you fucking laughing, talking over us when you called in to waste fucking time. Do you have evidence for God or not?
Well, that's like, so like, that's why one of the things that like, I feel like Dara, sorry.
Here,
You're
now
not
I've
answering
muted
Matt's
you.
question.
Nobody can hear you avoid my fucking question. So I've muted you. I'm going to unmute you. And when I do, the question I asked was, do you have evidence for God or not? That's a yes or no question. Don't say no, but. Don't say yes, but. It's a yes or no question. I'd like you to answer that, and then you can continue. So, do you have evidence for God, yes or no?
Yes.
Cool. What is it?
Cool. So that's what I was trying to get to. And like, I really.
Okay, I'm going to mute you again. I don't need you to tell me what you were trying to get to. I need you to fucking get to it, because you've been on the phone for 16 minutes and haven't gotten to anything remotely useless that I give the slightest fuck about or that demonstrates the truth of your beliefs in any fucking way. So stop telling me what you're going to do and do it. Just like when Dara asked you a question, you went to, I'd like to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question. And he immediately, rightfully called you out for avoiding answering the question. So don't tell me you're going to present evidence for God. Present the fucking evidence for God. Go.
Okay, so we spoke earlier about logic, right? And logically, certain things align with the Bible 100%. So you have like this Greek philosophy of logic that was discovered, okay? And then you have
I'm done.
I'm
done. Literally, you said logically certain things align with the Bible 100%. That is a complete sentence shut up. That is a complete sentence that is devoid of any useful context or content at all. Saying logically certain things would align with the Bible 100%.
All right.
Give me one example of shut your mouth until I answer. What is wrong with you, Brian?
Sorry.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You fucking laughing little shit.
I laugh when I'm uncomfortable. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
you're
really
going
like
to be laughing
with
for a
you
while
guys.
if you keep coming up, if you keep avoiding questions to where I have to publicly embarrass you over and over again. Just tell me what you mean by logically certain things align with the Bible 100%. Just give me one fucking example so I have some hope of understanding what you're babbling about.
Okay. So, for example, when in the biblical paradigm of what a marriage is, it's one man, one woman. Okay? Now, logically, since about half the population is women and about half of the population is men, it's logically consistent for relationships to happen and to produce children that you'd want to have one man and one woman produce children.
Wrong.
Most people,
wrong at every
Matt,
conceivable level. I'm going to mute him. What were you going to do, Dar?
I was just going to say that there's nothing at all fantastical, miraculous, or serendipitous about the notion that the Bible is heteronormative. And the heteronormativity of the Bible is being marshaled as evidence for the truth of the Bible by Brian. And I gotta give Brian credit here. It's a strange kind of credit, Brian. This is not a compliment. That sure is the strangest argument for the truth of the Bible that I've ever had the displeasure of hearing. It's utterly bizarre.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful that Brian, who doesn't agree with me about logic, continues to demonstrate that he doesn't understand the basics of logic. So, for example, when I ask for an example of something that is logically aligned with the Bible 100%, he presents something that has nothing to do with logic, that is not a valid and sound argument, and makes a number of absolutely bizarre grade school level errors with regard to every aspect of this. First of all, marriage is not necessarily for the production of children. marriage isn't required for producing children. Long before marriage was around, we were producing children. Second of all, in a species like humans that produce usually one offspring over a period of 9 months, but occasionally you might have 10 twins or triplets or whatever else. But our particular sexual reproductive strategy is one where there is a person who carries the child for 9 months. It's actually, as someone who breeds not just reptiles, but mammals, we have colonies of different species. Some of those species, you put one male and one female. Some of those species, you put one male and 3 or 4 females. Some of them, you put 2 males and 4 or 5 females because the males may need a little competition. In human beings, if what we wanted to do was produce children, marriage would not only be irrelevant, but it wouldn't be one man, one woman. It would be one man and as many people with viable, ready wombs ovulating as you could possibly fuck in that time span. That would be the maximizing of producing children. So you don't understand biology, you don't understand sex, not surprising. You don't understand logical arguments. You don't understand reason and evidence. You don't understand any of the things you talked about. But let's just assume for a second that if we ignore all the things you're wrong about and you don't understand, how is the fact that the Bible, which does not, by the way, call for marriage being between one man and one woman, in many cases of the Bible, it's between one man, his wife, her handmaid, his other wives, his other handmaids. So you're cherry picking one particular concept from the Bible, and you still manage to get all of it wrong. How is it possible, Brian, that anything you've said should be considered by any reasonable person to be evidence for the existence of a God?
See, like, for one thing, Jesus said in the beginning, what was it? It was a man and a woman. Did he tolerate?
No, Jesus did not say in the beginning, what was it? It was a man or a woman. I'm going to hang up on you now, Brian, and you're welcome to call back when you find the Bible verse where Jesus said in the beginning, what was it? A man and a woman. Okay? Can you find that Bible verse and then call me back?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
That'd be a
Goodbye.
pleasure. Hey, look.
No, it's not going to be a pleasure. All right. Let's try some more.
Forgive my laughter, but some of the zingers you came out with there in response. When he said that he laughs when he's uncomfortable, and you said, "Well, you're going to be laughing for a long time."
Let's try this again. People often ask how I'm able to decompress after the show, and it's because I don't hang on to stuff. If he calls back with the verse in question, cool. But I'm ready to move on. So we've got Andrew. It just says a guy instead of pronouns in Florida. So you don't have any preferred pronouns at all, Andrew?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Well, yeah. So if we refer to you as she, her, that's not going to be an issue, right?
I'm a him.
Oh, that's a pronoun. Do you not know that him is a pronoun?
It was not needed, sir. I'm a guy.
It was needed because what we asked is, do you have preferred pronouns? And you said that you didn't have. Stop talking. You said you didn't have preferred pronouns, but then when I asked further, it turns out you do have preferred pronouns. Thank you. So, what are you calling about, Andrew?
Yeah, I would just like to do my best to prove God's existence. I am a man in the Bible, and if you studied the Bible, there's a man in the Bible that had a legion. I am that guy. So I've seen angels, I've seen demons. I've heard the devil for 4 years.
Andrew, are you saying, how long have you been alive?
I've been 39 years.
So if the Bible was written, every bit of it, much longer ago than 39 years, how is it you're a man in the Bible?
Well, I'm not a man in the Bible. I have a testimony
That's what you said you
similar
were.
to a guy in the Bible.
No. That's what you said you were. You said you were a man in the Bible. You said you were. I thought you said that you were literally a man character in the Bible, right?
I have a testimony similar to a guy in the Bible. A guy in the Bible that had a legion. I am that guy.
You're not that guy. Do you understand the difference between two things being the same and two things? I'm sorry, Andrew, interrupting me is never going to work out well for you. Do you understand the difference between two people being the same and two people being similar?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So what you're saying is you have a personal testimony that you think is similar to somebody in the Bible, right?
Yes, sir.
How does it prove God?
How does this prove God? That I've seen angels with wings, and I've seen demons with wings. I've seen them with my own eyes and heard them with my own ears.
Okay. I don't know how you prove any of that, but I also don't know how that proves God.
Here's how I'll prove God. This is how my experience with angels and demons and me studying the Bible and hearing them quote the Bible to me for 4 years, I've refined it down to John 1:1 in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word
Andrew,
was with God, the Word was God.
Andrew, we don't need you to read the Bible to us. We've already read it, taught it, preached it, everything. I'm trying to say, if you have this testimony where you are convinced that you've seen an angel, how does you thinking you've seen an angel prove God exists?
Well, the Bible says angels and demons exist, and I've seen them with my own eyes and ears. So if angels and demons exist because I have seen them and I have heard them.
See, this is a logical fallacy. This is a logical fallacy. The Spider-Man comics say New York exists. If New York exists, or you see New York, does that mean Spider-Man exists?
The comic books are not the Holy Bible.
Okay. I'll wipe my ass with both of them, but you are avoiding the question. This is about the logical fallacy in the argument that you just presented. The fact that you think you saw angels doesn't mean you saw angels. And even if you did see angels, just because the Bible mentions angels doesn't mean the Bible's true any more than it means Dan, what's his face's book about angels and demons is true.
Okay, well, in the Bible, in John 7, verses 37 through 39, it says, believers will flow out of their heart with rivers of living water. So that's why I don't need the Bible in front of me. I can just say John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. And there's another verse in the Bible, the Holy Bible.
How does this prove God?
Book,
how does this prove God? How does this prove God?
You're speaking words. This is how it proves God, because in the beginning was the Word. I'm created in the image and likeness of God, and I'm speaking words. You're speaking to me with words. So therefore, you are created in the image and likeness of God. Use logic.
I speak words, but that's not what John 1:1 is talking about. John 1:1 is not talking about words as in the sense of language. So you don't understand what John 1:1 says, and you don't understand how to prove that a God exists.
Well, either you're just full, like all the way atheist, and you're in refusal to believe that the Bible is true. And it says there is a place for the unbelievers. Believers, though, there's a place in paradise.
So, because you have no good argument, therefore it must be that we're obstinate.
Well, here's the thing. You guys are saying logic, reason, and because you're created in the image and likeness of God, and that verse is in the Holy Bible that you are, right? Because God created all things through the Word.
I don't care what the Bible says. I don't care what the Bible says. You first have to prove the Bible is true before you get to use it to say that it's true. You have to show that it's true. The fact that the Bible says God created me doesn't mean that it's true. Do you know where the Bible came from?
You're speaking words. The Word created you. You're speaking words, and you're a man. You're created in the image and likeness of God.
I'll let
Andrew, good grief. Okay, the Bible said something. Let's assume that your interpretation of John is correct. Okay. The Bible says something about words, and we speak words. Therefore, God. Is that the right idea? Is that what you're suggesting? The Bible says something about words, we speak words, therefore God. Have I summarized your argument correctly?
No,
That was a
you
question,
have
Andrew.
not.
Okay, so where did I go wrong?
Well, you're saying that I do not have an understanding of the Word, and I know that the Word is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the Messiah, and in the beginning,
That is not what he said. That is not what he said, Andrew.
Andrew, I granted your interpretation of John. I granted it for the sake of discussion. From this point onwards, everything you say about your interpretation of the Bible is correct. Okay? So please don't quote the Bible at me anymore. I'm not interested in you giving us your interpretation. I'm just going to assume that your interpretation of the Bible is correct. Okay, your interpretation of the Word is correct. The Word is Jesus. We speak words. Make it make sense. How do you get from there to therefore God?
How do I get it to where?
How do you get from what you've said to the existence of God? The Bible says stuff about words. Your interpretation of the word is correct for the sake of argument. Link that to the existence of God for me. How does that demonstrate the existence of your God? For the third time.
Well, in the beginning, in Genesis 1:1, it said that God created the heavens and the earth. You are, like, when you look, when you step outside your studio today,
Andrew,
you're going to look up, you're going to see a sky, you're going to see heaven, and you're going to see an earth.
Stop! Oh, good grief. Yes, Andrew, the Bible says that God did stuff. Great. The Mahabharata says that Hindu gods did stuff. Right? The Guru Granth Sahib of Sikhism says that Waheguru did stuff. But I trust you're not a Sikh. Right? Holy books say stuff. Great. Fantastic. Who knew? Now link it to the existence of your God, because clearly the words on their own do not suffice.
Well, the Bible's true because of this. In John 7, verses 37 through 39, it says, believers in Christ will flow out of their heart with rivers of living water. And I don't even have the Bible in front of me, and out of my heart are flowing rivers of living water. Who is the bread of life?
Andrew,
the bread of
what's
life
living
is
water?
Christ.
What's
Jesus
living
Christ
water?
Says that will happen for
What
me
is
if
living
I believe.
water? What is living water?
The Word of God.
So you do understand analogy and metaphor, and that the word isn't necessarily words. So you say that the living water that flows out of your heart are words, right?
Words.
I asked a question.
They're living water.
You are saying, are you saying, would you shut the fuck up and listen to the question and then answer it afterwards? Are you saying that words, which are the living water, flow from your heart?
Yes, sir. And the Bible is true.
Prove it. Prove it. When I ask a yes or no question, just say yes. Just say yes and shut the fuck up until I ask you for something more than a yes. Because now you need to prove, I believe your heart pumps blood like mine does. Prove that your heart issues forth words.
Here's how I'll prove it to you. And if you open up your Bibles to John 7,
here comes the Bible quote,
verses 37 through 39,
I've got it.
A believer will flow out of their heart with rivers of living water. And because I do not have the Bible in front of me, the Bible is true. Because I can stand here on the phone with you and flow out of my heart with rivers of living water. Therefore, that is the Word of God. True, because the contrary basic left-right of it is lie on the left and truth on the right.
Andrew, please
and Jesus
stop.
is the way, the truth, and the life. And Jesus says, out of my heart will flow rivers of living water.
Please stop. Just stop. Andrew, when we ask you to demonstrate the truth of the Bible, quoting the Bible obviously isn't going to suffice. That's a circular argument. Let me do what you're doing right now. Hey, Andrew, your religion is false. You know how I know that? Because I know it. Because I say so. Because I'm always correct. And when I say your religion is false, it just follows by entailment that therefore your religion is false, because everything I say is correct. That is your argument. When I ask you to demonstrate the truth of what it says in the Bible, you just keep quoting another Bible verse at us. This is insane. You have to acknowledge this. What are you doing? Surely you don't think you've provided us with a good reason. Can you offer us a justification, some kind of inference which demonstrates the truth of the Bible that doesn't itself refer back to the Bible. That's what we're asking you for. Can you do that?
You want to prove the Bible without using the Bible. Do you hear the logic that you are giving to your people that call into your studio?
Yes,
prove the
we
Bible
do hear it because we're saying prove the no we're saying prove the Bible with something other than just saying what the Bible says, because just because the Bible says something doesn't mean it's true, does it?
I pray the Holy Ghost reveals himself to you all himself.
Well, prayer is fucking useless, and your God
you.
can't even give me a hangnail. I don't care what you pray about. I asked you a question. Is the Bible true merely because it says it's true? That's a yes or no question. Is that too fucking hard for you? It's clearly too hard for you.
There's witnesses. All right, so here's the basic left right of it. In the Holy Bible, there's the...
No. I'm tired of the basic left right of it. Here's the thing. The Bible says a bunch of stuff. We both know that. We've both read it. We both used to believe it, or to some extent. I shouldn't speak for you, Dara, because
I don't
right.
know. You got it right. No, I was pretty hardcore at one point. Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to speak for how much you may have believed.
No, and I appreciate you clarifying, Matt. That's good. I appreciate it.
And then we gained an understanding that while we had been taught that the Bible was true and it's the Word of God, and that it's true because it's the Word of God, we had no evidence to support that conclusion. Similarly, the Quran claims to be the words of God. It starts with praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, etc., blah, 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 blah. There are other holy texts that make claims about various gods. Some of them make claims about the Christian God. Some of them make claims about the Jewish version of that God. Some of them make claims about the Islamic version of that God. So we're looking at a whole bunch of different texts making claims about gods. And we're in a weird position because we need to figure out which one of those books, if any, is correct. How do we determine which one of those books is correct? That's the only question I have for you right now. That's all I'm asking is, how do we tell you? Were you talking the whole time you were on hold? Because nobody could hear you.
Might have been.
So the question is, how do we tell which of those books with God claims is the one, if any, that is true?
Here comes a Bible quote.
John 7. John 7, verses 37 through 39.
Goodbye, Andrew. Goodbye, Andrew. I'm stuck with two. I'm stuck with two options here. Either I become convinced, either I become convinced that you are a troll because nobody can be this stupid, or I become convinced that you are in fact unstable and irrational, because we're asking a very straightforward question of, here are 3 books that talk about God, and I want to find out, keep laughing, Fuzzball. I want to find out which one of them is correct. And you cite one of them as if that would answer the question. I hope you're just joking and not someone who's in serious need of help. But thank you for wasting our time. Goodbye. No, you don't get to speak. You had plenty of opportunities to speak. We begged you. Dara accepted all of your premises.
Yep.
And then said, even if we accept all of that, all that you say about the words, does that mean that you saying words proves God? Is that what you're saying? I'm stuck. Here's the thing. I'm gonna derail for a second, and then we have another theist calling. So this one says he'll present the proof of a creator through cosmological arguments. So cool. Even though
can't wait.
That can't do it either. But here's the thing. I don't know how many of you have heard about the dead internet theory. And it's this notion that the internet is mostly largely, mostly populated by bots and AI, and the algorithms are pushing stuff on you such that even much of the time when you think you're interacting with an actual person, you might not be. And it certainly seems that in certain pockets of the internet, that's true. Now, obviously, on Facebook, I know some of the people that I interact with. And so when Seth Andrews comments on something, or when Yvette mentions something, I know these are real people that I know something about. If somebody I don't know messages me out of the blue, which happens all the time, I have to judge it based on how they start. I'm going to read you guys something because yesterday I was an asshole to somebody. And I was an asshole in part because their message came at the wrong time. And I'm going to do the shortest version. They basically were sending in a suggestion, and they said, have you considered that you may never get a theist caller who's able to prove their point? And if so, have you considered pivoting from waiting for the call to being more instructional person showing point blank how to get from religion to nonsense? It's a perfectly acceptable line of thought. But what I wrote back was, do you think there's any reality in which I have not considered the possibility that I'll never get a theist caller to prove their point, considering I've spoken about that exact point repeatedly, and that I don't expect them to prove their point? And that isn't even the source of the frustration that you're seeing. I'm not frustrated because they don't prove God. I'm frustrated because they're dishonest, or they are trolls, or there are tech issues. That's where my frustration comes from. And then asking me if I've considered pivoting to instructional videos when I produce 4 of those every month for my Patreon account and have for over a decade. So I'm doing multiple call-in shows. I'm doing debates. I'm doing videos. It's all instructional. It's so weird that somebody who's never done any of this is sitting around thinking, I wonder if Matt's just ever considered the possibility that maybe nobody's ever going to prove God. It's literally come up on, I don't know, let's say at a conservative estimate, 10 or 15% of the shows that I've done, some version of you can't prove God is discussed in some way or another. Now, this guy and I continued our conversation. He apologized for something. I apologized for something. And I was like, he's like, I came at this wrong. I should have, thought this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, thank you for not getting upset that I was stupendously irritated before and during this conversation. Despite the way it seems, I'm open to suggestions, but all day, every day, I'm under attack. And then someone who's never done this, who isn't clear about things I've spoken about over and over and over, decides they might have cracked the code on how to do it better. It's exhausting. I'm happy to talk some other time. And we will. But part of this is theistic callers are not calling as much and are failing to put forth a real good effort to show this is really simple. I want to know what you believe. And then if what you believe is relevant and of interest, I like to know why you believe it and why you think other people should believe it. That's it. And then we can have a discussion about whether we agree, whether we disagree. If you're calling in to say you believe we're all God or the universe is God, any of those propositions that are ultimately untestable, unfalsifiable, and useless, any of those propositions that don't benefit, if your God is a useless God, I don't care about it. If your God is something that's personal to you, I only care to the extent that you can actually demonstrate that it's real. Not that it might be real, not that it's probably real, not that you haven't disproven it, because not disproving something as unfalsifiable is exactly what you'd expect. Ooh, nobody's disproved my God yet. Yeah, because they can't. It's because you constructed God that is, in fact, unfalsifiable. There's no way to demonstrate it. So I'm cautiously optimistic that our next caller, Jeff, is calling in from Michigan. Pronouns are he, him. Jeff, you're on the web client. I'll remind you that sometimes your phone goes to sleep. You might have to tap the phone to wake it up and then tap the browser to wake that up again. But it says here that Jeff's going to present proof of a creator through cosmological argument. So, Jeff, you're on with Dara and me, maybe. How are you? Jeff, we can't hear you. So you might have to tap your phone to wake your... Oh, Jeff hung up or disconnected. Or maybe Jeff felt guilty that he actually wasn't going to present evidence for the existence of God. Now, I don't want to make presumptions, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, and I don't want to sound like I'm paranoid, but the track record of callers that I've interacted with over the last 20 years suggests that we were not actually about to get evidence for the existence of God. And that while I appreciate the fact there are a number of different cosmological arguments, that's a category of arguments, the Kalam is probably the most popular among modern theologians. And what I find funny is, here's the Kalam cosmological argument in its entirety, start to finish. Everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause for its existence. That is the entirety of the Kalam. It doesn't in any way, even if it were completely valid and sound, the word God does not appear there. The concept of God does not appear there. It just says the universe has a cause. Now, I reject both of the premises in the Kalam as unworthy of assent, because I don't know of anything that doesn't begin to exist in some sense that you can investigate and determine whether or not it had a cause. So it's dishonest to inject the word begins to exist. And they only do that because they want to argue for a God that didn't begin to exist. The second is that the universe began to exist. I don't know that our local presentation of the universe had a beginning. I know that Big Bang cosmology leads back to what we infer as the starting point of the expansion, but that's not necessarily the starting point of the matter. And so the Kalam isn't going to do it. There are other cosmological arguments, and it might be cool if we could get somebody to call in with one or whatever. Oh, maybe back. Jeff, are you back? Hey, Jeff,
Yeah,
you're
sorry.
on with Dara, and if I misrepresented you in my attempt to summarize a good theistic argument, I apologize in advance.
No, absolutely. And I was just listening to the show as in the queue, and I have a great deal of respect for the both of you. So I'm from the University of Michigan, and I'm just curious what your two takes are on the cosmological argument.
Were you just listening to me just now? Because I just gave a complete breakdown of the Kalam. Okay.
I actually
So,
wasn't. I was
are you
trying
talking-
to reconnect to the show.
Are you talking about the Kalam cosmological argument? Because cosmological arguments is sure. I'll do this again just for you, even though I just did it, but I'll do it quickly. The Kalam the Kalam cosmological argument is this: everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause for its existence. That is the entirety of the argument. God is not mentioned, nor can God be inferred from that. If the argument were valid and sound, the conclusion is just that the universe had a cause. What kind of cause is a completely different issue. However, I reject both of the premises of the Kalam, in part because everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. It is, I find dishonest to put the word begins to exist there, because it's only there to propose something that doesn't begin to exist as an exception to the rule. And we don't know enough about causality to know that something merely beginning necessarily had a cause, even though causation appears to permeate the universe we inhabit. The second premise, that the universe began to exist, is talking about our local presentation of the universe. And while Big Bang cosmology shows that the expansion of the universe began to exist, it can say nothing about the origin of the matter itself, the origin of the actual universe pre-expansion, because we cannot explore that prior to the Planck time. So the argument is dubious at best, and in the end can only conclude, if it were sound, that there's a cause, not that there's a God.
All right. Well, seems like you've had this spiel a million times, and you clearly know your stuff very well. In that case, I don't think I have much to convince you about. And thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, my problem with the Kalam, as well as everything that Matt mentioned, is that the first premise, everything which begins to exist has a cause. At first glance, and when I was still a theist, it just seems so reasonable. But I learned a little bit about something called mereological nihilism, which is this idea that essentially we don't, well, this is one tenet of it at least, we actually don't have any evidence of anything beginning to exist. All we see around us on a daily basis is extant stuff being reorganized. That's all we actually ever see.
Even down to the atomic
something
level.
Yeah, absolutely. Name for me something which begins to exist. And, people might say, oh, well, this table began to exist. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
The atoms and the molecules that constitute the table already existed. All a carpenter did was take pre-existing material and assemble it into what we then label a table. This reminds me of
that carpenter wasn't Jesus, by the way.
This reminds me of the Buddhist idea. There's a Buddhist idea called sunyata, or emptiness, that things are empty of intrinsic existence, that things are amalgamations. Yep. There is no chariot. There is no table. There are only the component parts that make up the object. So when the Kalam wants to cite the objects in our everyday experience, which, quote unquote, begin to exist, it's guilty of an equivocation fallacy. It's using the word begins incorrectly, or that's the wrong way of putting it. It's using the word begins differently with regard to the objects around us when comparing with the universe, which, according to the Kalam, had an absolute beginning, where new stuff actually comes into being out of nothing, creatio ex nihilo, because that's how God created the universe. So the Kalam is guilty of an equivocation fallacy right off the bat. And then to Matt's point, we actually don't, the jury is out on whether or not the universe began to exist. There are models which propose a finite past, but there are models that don't. And the jury is out, it's not settled. And so to suggest that the Kalam works, and that's just two ideas. I could keep waxing lyrical here about all of my other problems with the Kalam, but I don't want to be too greedy with the mic here. It's just, it just doesn't, the argument is valid, which is to say that the structure is correct. If the premises are true, as they are written, then the conclusion would in fact necessarily follow. The problem is the soundness of the premises. Premise one is just, it cannot be supported as far as I can tell. I'm happy to have my mind changed if somebody wants to call in. Premise two, the jury is out. And so how can I possibly assent to the conclusion of the Kalam? It just doesn't work as far as I'm concerned. But again, as per usual, I'm happy to have my mind changed.
No, and that's brilliant and much appreciated. I wonder if we could take the Kalam, and by the way, that was a weird call. That was not even in the ballpark of what I expected to happen. And here's what I genuinely hope. I went ahead and let that guy go because that was an honest concession. And if that guy is a theist, as was, I hope that he goes off and says, and thinks about it, and then says, ooh, here's the problem with what they said, or what about these other arguments, and are there similar things? All I do is hope it prompts honest thought. Because if that caller goes off and comes up with a better cosmological argument, one where the premises aren't, premises is always difficult to read, premises aren't dubious and are things that we would and should reasonably accept, then all of a sudden you've come up with a different argument. And if it concludes with, therefore God, then I would be forced to accept it. This is the way things are supposed to happen. And I feel both elated and confused that after whining about the trend, we essentially had an honest interaction that ended in a concession. And not that, and that's a beautiful thing. Please remember this. He didn't concede that there's not a God, and I didn't assert that there's not a God. He didn't concede that he's wrong about God, and I didn't assert that he was wrong about God. He had he wanted to know what we thought about an argument for the existence of God. And we told him. And that was good enough. And now if he knows if he's going to go and try to argue for the existence of whatever God he believes in, at least here with us, he should do something other than the Kalam. And I hope, and I'm reasonably confident or optimistic that someone who presented as honestly as that person did would just stop using the Kalam at all with anybody, not just the people who know it, because if you're unwilling to use the Kalam with Dara and me, but you're willing to use it with the man on the street, then you're no longer an honest interlocutor. You're engaged in propaganda and manipulation. You're not trying to demonstrate the truth of a proposition. You are trying to present what you think will convince people of something. And now you're a used car salesman.
This is why I'm frustrated with William Lane Craig, who was undoubtedly the world's foremost Christian apologist. And one of his claims to fame is the Kalam. It's the argument that put him on the map, basically. And I get frustrated with Craig because Craig does exactly what you just said, Matt. Craig has been corrected numerous times on his citing of the Borde-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, a theorem which Craig alleges demonstrates the finitude of the past. It demonstrates
corrected by Alan Guth.
Corrected by one of the authors, Alan Guth, one of the authors of the paper in a now infamous moment in his debate.
It's my favorite moment from any debate in history.
You and me both. Craig cites for those who aren't aware, Craig cites the Borde-Guth-Vilenkin theorem as powerful evidence for the truth of the finitude of the past, of a universe that had an absolute beginning, creatio ex nihilo. And Sean Carroll, physicist Dr. Sean Carroll, brings up a picture in his PowerPoint of Alan Guth, one of the authors of the paper, telling Craig that he is incorrectly citing the paper and that the paper does not show what he claims it to show. I have a video coming out on this soon, and forgive the shameless plug, but I've put the timeline together, and Craig, a year later, no less, and he probably did it many other times in between, no less than a year later, Craig is on stage at another talk presenting the exact same theorem as evidence for an absolute beginning. Craig is a used car salesman, just like Matt said. And I value Craig's academic credentials. He's clearly an incredibly smart guy, a great orator, supremely intelligent, probably far more intelligent than I am. I'll give him his credentials all day long. He's a very accomplished academic. I don't deny that for a second, but you cannot tell me that he isn't dishonest when he continues to present the Borde-Guth-Vilenkin theorem despite having been corrected by one of the authors. That is the height of dishonesty and deception, and he does so with lay audiences all of the time, and it simply isn't good enough.
There's an online article that claims that Sean Carroll during the debate pulled up a video of Alan Guth basically saying, I'll paraphrase this in the way that entertains me most. This is not what he literally said, but it's basically Alan Guth saying, Craig doesn't understand my model in the slightest. And it's because the paper and the Borde-Guth-Vilenkin model doesn't say anything specific in this realm. And by the way, the authors of that may not agree on what conclusion could be reached from it outside of the paper. Maybe they agree, maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm not speaking for any of them other than, and actually I'm not speaking for Alan beyond what he said. But Craig uses their model to create an inference that's not included in the model, implying that the creators of the model do accept that inference, that it's necessarily the case that this is the hinge pin or linchpin of their model. And what Sean Carroll did was he had a little video of Alan Guth basically saying, I'm not convinced that X is true. which is the inference that Greg's trying to make. It's my favorite moment. My second favorite moment from any debate was a debate between Matt Slick and Jesse. I'm sorry, I've forgotten Jesse's name, but it was basically two Christians arguing over salvation, and they were each picking verses out of the Bible to support their view, and were doing absolutely nothing to explain how the verses that the other person was picking were being incorrectly understood. It's like, I picked a verse, and here's why it supports my model. And you would think this person would say, oh, that verse doesn't mean this the way you said it does. No, it was, I'm going to pick a different verse, and that supports my model. And it's like, it looked like a fantasy football league where they're drafting verses for their particular interpretation. It is as close to a literal physical picking of cherries as I've ever seen on a subject that, if one of them were correct about the existence of God, would be the most important thing anybody could know, which is, what must I do to be saved? Is there anything I can do to be saved? What is the process by which we align ourselves correctly with God's desires to reach the afterlife of our desire? And it may be there are models. This is soteriology, is the subject of salvation. There are models where it doesn't matter what you do. God's already got it sorted out and picked out. There's other models where, okay, God's going to give you the faith to do, through his grace, the faith to accomplish the acceptance that leads you there. There are others where there's a works model of salvation. There are others that are directly against a works model of salvation. And all of these exist to varying degrees in the Bible. There are books in the New Testament that it's either, I think, 3rd John or Jude, that is more focused on works, that faith without works is empty and things like that. And from that, we can basically say, in the same way that Judaism doesn't have a good functional model of an afterlife, Christianity doesn't repair that much. It does have a model, but the process by which to get there is not remotely fair, or not remotely clear, not fair. We are out of theist callers, but we do have callers. So I'm going to remind everybody, once we're done with the callers, we're going to be reading all the super chats over $10. We're not going to keep Dara here forever, but we do have 3 atheist callers, and one of them has been on hold for an hour and 40 minutes. So Jeff in Michigan has pronouns are he, him. The spirit is our longing not to die. I don't understand, so enlighten us.
Hey, Matt. I'm really grateful to be on the show, and I'll try to make this as short as possible. And I actually wanted to get...
I can make it shorter.
I know, but here you go. I'll just hop right in. So I've been writing lately and thinking, and I wrote this. The spirit is a concept of, in a shorthand way of explaining the manifestation of our longing as individuals to find an escape from our own deaths, which we find inevitable. And the second thing I wrote was, okay, I'll try.
You don't have it written down?
Yes. The spirit is a shorthand way of trying to explain the manifestation of our longing as individuals to escape the inevitability of death.
Okay. Why would we need to label? Yeah, so we have a longing to escape the inevitability of death. What is the manifestation of that longing, and why should we refer to that as spirit?
Well, the reason why we refer to it, why people refer to it as spirit, is because it's the theists that have ruled the roost in the world since cavemen, really, and they are the ones that invented the language, right? So we kind of got to take that language and backtrack a little bit, see where they're coming from with it, and then come to our own conclusions about it.
Okay, you're rapidly losing me, and I don't want that to happen. So, and by losing me, I don't mean I'm confused. I mean, okay, I would agree, and maybe we all would, that humans would prefer not to die. Generally speaking, there are some humans that would like to die, but generally speaking of humans in the general, we have a strong desire for self-preservation, right?
Yes, absolutely. And not only but all of us.
But the manifestation of that desire to not die can take many different forms. For example, eating healthy might be a manifestation of a desire to not die, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Why would we call eating healthy spirit?
Well, because I think we could kind of put that one down into the next category I was coming to, which is spirituality. Right?
No, please stick.
Well,
I went and I took fucking notes on what you said.
Okay. I know.
Spirit is a way to explain the manifestation of our longing to avoid the inevitability of dying. Mm-hmm. The inevitability of dying, even if we assume that humans are trying to avoid that, manifests in different ways. I gave you an example of one of the ways it might manifest, which is eating right. Does it make sense to say, I'm eating right, so that is spirit? No, it doesn't. Not at all. We don't have. No. And also, the word spirituality has used so many different ways and means so many different things to other people, different people, that it's pretty much useless. So shifting from spirit to spirituality, when what we're talking about is a rational action to thwart death, why shouldn't we just say people prefer not to die and they're going to take certain actions to avoid dying if they can? Why do we need to label it spirit or spirituality at all?
Because we don't have to convince each other, Matt, because we're atheists, right? We already agree with that.
No, I'm saying anyone in the world, not atheists. I'm not talking about atheists. I'm saying, why should humans refer to a rational decision to avoid death as spirit or spiritual?
Okay, here's my true thoughts on this. I don't think we should, right? I think that religions have co-opted language to a great degree.
Jeff,
no,
correct me if I'm wrong.
We can come up.
Just let me say one thing, because I could be wrong. But my suspicion is that you and Matt are talking past each other just slightly. Now, I could be wrong, maybe, but let me just interject this. Jeff, are you just explaining your hypothesis on the etymology of the word spirit? So this isn't something you actually believe by your own admission. You're not saying that we should use the words this way. You're trying to offer some kind of a historical account of the etymology of the word and why you think the word is so common in our language in today's world. Is that what you're doing?
You are exactly correct.
Okay. Matt, would I be correct in saying that you were interpreting Jeff as actually claiming that we should use the word?
Well, that was part of the discussion, but so we'll go ahead and go with that. But I already suspected that he, as an atheist, did not think this should be the use of the word.
Okay.
But I didn't think I was getting an etymology lesson because spirit is an English word that comes from a Latin word for breathe. So what you're complaining about, what you're addressing here, isn't that religions have co-opted language. It is, there's a concept of a soul or a spirit, and that concept is looking for any justification. And either I think what it is you think religious people are taking the concept of avoiding death and just calling it spirit or soul. I think that religious people in some cases have a concept of spirit and soul and that it may have nothing to do with avoiding death because some of them are seeking death. In religious senses, in Christianity and some other religions, it's not about avoiding death. The spirit of the soul is the true essence of who you are. When Judges 11, or no, maybe it wasn't Judges 11:1. Or anyway, the passage that says, before I formed, I think it's Judges 11:1. I'd have to look it up. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. It's essentially describing that I knew you before you existed as a person, before death was a thing. The spirit of the soul is our true selves, the ghost in the machine, not manifestations of avoiding death. And quite frankly, many believers cannot wait for the physical death because that's when they get to go on to the preferred existence. So it seems that you are, I don't know, putting the cart in front of the horse. I'm wondering what's the purpose of all this? Because you were on hold for almost 2 hours. What is it we're trying to get to?
Well, actually, I think I'm trying to get to a place where atheists have a better idea of what theists are thinking, I guess, maybe, and trying to create some sort of a dialogue like that. So lately I've been on and partly what's triggered this, honestly, is I'm a big YouTube watcher. Obviously, I'm watching you on YouTube, and I do get influenced by these videos, and there's some prominent atheists that have a different point of view, and then I'm sort of picking up on a little bit.
Call them.
No, well, yes, I can. I will. I was hoping, I honestly, I was kind of hoping that you might, in your spare time, if you had any, to check out, a half hour of one of her videos. And I can leave it right there if you want. And you don't have to. If you don't have to, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little dry mouth, and I don't have any water. So,
that's okay.
Anyway,
well, go get some water, because I don't think that what you presented, first of all, if your goal is to have atheists have better ideas of what theists are thinking, it might help if you had better ideas of what theists are thinking, because what you think theists are thinking about soul is very different from what I was, thought as a Christian and what I interact with other people. You're literally the first person in the history of my life who has tried to say that when religious people say spirit, which generally they don't say, they say soul, but at least with regard to, Western Christianity, when religious people say spirit, they're really just trying to explain the manifestation of our longing to avoid death. And while there's some poetic sense in which aspects of religion were perhaps born from a fear of death or dying, I think it is inaccurate to say that's what religious people mean by spirit. And so if you're going to, I don't think there's much value in getting atheists to better understand what theists mean by spirit. I think that atheists should have a better understanding of differences between theistic views, so that you don't go after a Catholic for something a Protestant believes or a Protestant for something a Catholic believes. And as skeptics, we should be saying, what do you believe and why? And that way, when somebody calls in, if a caller believes that spirit is a manifestation of our longing, or directly, or if their belief directly maps to labeling that manifestation, then we found an example where your view is the one we're talking to, but we can easily just ask them that question. What problem are you trying to solve?
Let me see. Well, my next thing is that I think that a lot of people's beliefs we've evolved with over time, right? And so, given the fact that
Jeff, I'm not looking for a new co-host, and I don't need a lecture on your thoughts on anthropology. The question I asked was, what problem are you trying to solve?
I thought I had told you that I was just trying to I was trying to find a different way to look at the same problem. That's it. And so I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. If you come up with another way and it's got some problem that it solves and is beneficial to all of us, let us know.
Thanks for calling, Jeff.
One more thing. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. One more thing. If I write this out, if I write this out in long form and send it to you, would you respond to it?
Probably not in a way that you would like.
Probably not. Okay.
It's funny that you took the probably not part of that. Cool. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
I don't know.
I think Jeff was well-meaning, but I don't know. It was strange. It was a strange approach, I suppose.
Yeah. It's also, it's interesting what he took away from that, because it's like, if I were to write all this down and send it to you, would you reply? And I'm like, probably not in the way that you would like, but he heard probably not. Now, maybe that was a problem with the phone or whatever. I had somebody send me an email. And by the way, if that person is watching, let me see. The email came in. By the way, this is a regular part of my life. We have one more call we're going to get to here in just a minute, and then we'll do super chats. Hi, Matt. I think you may be the perfect person to read this Google Doc. I can't say it's perfect, but I can say it is worth your time. I believe it's worth everyone's time. In short, I think I know why our society is so messed up and divided over conflicting religious and political beliefs, and why no one seems to know how to fix it. I hope my rationale is clear in this doc. Then they linked to a Google Doc. I opened the Google Doc. I read the first 2 points on the first page of, 23 pages in this document.
Jesus, it's a manifesto.
Yes. And in the first section, it points out that there are two mutually exclusive types of interaction possible between two people about their conflicting beliefs. The first is debates, and debates are combative, performative, rhetorical, and thus inherently corrosive to intellectual and moral honesty, and fatally undermine the goal of mutual understanding and truth-induced unity. Debates incentivize us to double down on our preconceived beliefs and become more, not less, emotionally wedded to our conclusions. Sometimes formal debates in the real world can look and feel more like conversations that don't strictly hold to the zero-sum nature of a combat sport, with one person winning at the expense of the other person. I merely refer to debates here, because, in quotes, because it's the best term I'm aware of that most of us are familiar with. The alternative option is truth-seeking conversations, interactions that are respectful, inquisitive, curious, fact, logic, and content. This is as far as I needed to read before I had a really good grasp of the individual putting forth this manifesto, deciding to present a straw man version of debates with a straw man version of truth-seeking conversations, and present that as if it were a true dichotomy. That is at least, just in that description, that is at least 3 fallacious things. And this was at the beginning, and he sent this to the guy who runs the Atheist Debates Patreon. By the way, if you go to patreon.com/atheist debates, that you can support me directly there. And I put up 4 videos a month that teach things about debates, in addition to debates I do. And I have a debate in the line, possibly for February, a big name, big stage debate here in Austin, but we haven't worked out the details. And as somebody who's done this for 20 years, it became very clear. I'm reading someone's dissertation because they've thought about this and they think they've cracked the code. And I'm glad people are working to try to crack the code. But if right off the bat, I see you do a false equivalency by saying these are the 2 options, and each of your options is a caricature and not so a straw man, I already know that nothing I read in the next 22 pages is going to change that. Just in the same way, this is why people really need to understand logical syllogisms and fallacies. A fallacy does not mean the conclusion is false. That would be the fallacy. A fallacy means the conclusion is indeterminate. Its truth value is indeterminate. If your argument is fallacious in structure, the conclusion might be true and it might not be true. We can't tell from that argument alone. And so, if you present premise one, and premise one is false, or the conclusion of a fallacious argument, we have to throw out your entire argument. You have to go back to the drawing board. It doesn't mean that your belief is wrong. It means that your attempt to prove it is flawed. Just like if you hop on a bicycle to ride from your house to my house and the chain's broken, you don't get to ride that bicycle. It doesn't mean you don't want to come to my house. It doesn't mean you're not eager to leave your house.
I want to go to
It
your
means
house, Matt.
that bicycle is not going to get you there. All right, final call of the day. D is a secular Buddhist, pronouns they, them, calling over the web interface. So I'll remind you that you may need to tap your phone to wake up your phone and then tap the web interface to wake up the web interface. D says they're facing eviction and the only place they can stay is the gospel mission. Would it be hypocritical to go to them for help? Hey, D, hey, what's going on?
Hey, Matt, thanks for taking my call. Love the show tonight. Very, very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a little bit of backstory here that might influence your opinion. This shelter is run by a pastor with whom I have butted heads in the past. I used to run a financial services business, which included Western Union. He sent some people over. They wanted to send some money. They were structuring it in an illegal way. They thought I was calling them illegal because they're foreign. There was a huge language. And the next thing I know, he's striding into my office, demanding that I send the transfer and apologize. And we went back and forth on phone calls and stuff for like a week. We don't like each other at all. But
Okay.
this place is starting to look like the only option that I have right now. What do I do, Matt?
Well, if you have one option to stay alive, I don't see where there's, how can it even be a question?
Okay.
If it's genuinely, this is the only option, it's this or I die, then you do that thing.
Okay.
I don't know the situation. I don't know what other potential options you have, but if you're convinced that this is the only option you have and they can help, why wouldn't you let them help?
Honestly, to be honest, it's probably more pride than anything else.
And to quote the Bible,
incredibly stupid, doesn't it?
Not at all.
Pride cometh before fall, but it's not stupid. You're like, why would I ever knowingly admit that I need this person that I despise?
Yeah.
It's very human.
You got to take care of yourself.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty, definitely, of that.
You're guilty of being a human. We all are.
Although some of the callers, I'm convinced, are not actually guilty of being a human.
Well, with the dead internet theory, you might be right. Remember?
Yeah. No, I'm that's the callback. So yeah. Here's the thing, D. I'm sorry that you're in this position, and certainly when you said, "Oh, there's some context that may change how you think about this," generally, I was going to say, can we tell you what our opinion is and then have you give us the context and see if our opinions change? Because my first opinion was, if in fact you're in a position where you are likely going to die or suffer tremendously unless you get help from someone who's willing to help you, but you don't like them and you don't get along with them and you've got a history, I don't know. That didn't change my view. I would have given you the same answer. The question is it true that this is the only option? And I don't, I don't have any way of assessing that.
I'm not 100% there yet, but I mean, daily.
Yeah.
And believe me, I've been blowing up my phone, hunting down options and resources and stuff. So it's like, I'm not there yet, but yeah.
Even if it makes you hypocritical in some regard, is it better be hypocritical and alive and able to make changes and corrections to that, or die not being a hypocrite?
Yeah, that's definitely. Oh, yeah.
None of this, by the way,
like I said,
nothing about this situation does anything to demonstrate the truth of his views or his theism or anything related to the finance stuff. None of it. None of it's relevant. You are in a position of need. Let me put it this way. If I ever find myself homeless on the street, every little cardboard card that I hold up to ask for money is going to have a cross and a Bible verse on it. Every fucking one of them. And it's because if I need to guilt someone on behalf of their delusion into helping me to stay alive, I'm okay with that, because it's better for them to be out $20 because they think Jesus wants me to live than for them to not give me anything because they didn't care at all. If they only care because of Jesus, I'll take it. I'd rather engage with people who care because I'm me. I want to save you just because you're a human being in need of something. And that's why I'm a better role model than Jesus. But Jesus gets bigger donations. And as long as Jesus gets bigger donations, I'm putting his name on my begging for money card and not Dara's.
There's no point in trying to play basketball if everybody else is playing football.
True.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Dee. Take care of yourself.
Kind of broke me out.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself.
Appreciate.
Keep reaching out to people and reach out to secular organizations to see if they have any lines that can help you in your area. I mean, neither of us are anywhere near your area to do anything helpful, and I don't know anybody in your area. But if you reach out to the national organizations like American Atheist, they may have a representative for your state that would know of potential resources in your area. There should also be non-religious homeless shelters that people can contact. Or if there's not one near enough to you, you may be able to get enough donations to travel to one to find a place to stay. So there may be other options, but at the end of the day, if you're going to fucking freeze and die, I don't care if you walk in and say, I've changed my mind. I love Jesus. I'll do your books for you. I'll figure out your finance stuff. I'll even cheat the government on your behalf if that's what you want. I just don't want to die out in the cold. You're basically, at that point, you've got a gun to your head.
God, thank you. Thank you both.
Try not to be
I really appreciate you guys.
Try not to let it go that far, but I mean, it's at least understandable.
Right.
See, instead of trying to lie to them and be like, oh, I love Jesus and I'll do your books, see if they actually are good enough people to be willing to help you, even with the conflict, without you agreeing to anything else, because that's what Jesus would want them to do, according to them, probably. All right, Dee.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Best of luck,
stay
Dee.
warm. What a wild way to end tonight's call-in show. By the way, we're going to start reading super chats here in just a minute or so. Dara, I don't know, because I've only visited the UK on occasion. We have an incredible homeless problem here in Austin, and generally it's because we have good weather. It's very rarely difficult cold here. And so anybody, even from North Texas or Oklahoma or whatever, they'll hitchhike to Austin if they're homeless because you're getting closer to better weather. Do you have a homeless problem in your area, or are there better resources to handle that?
There's definitely a homelessness problem. I'm not familiar with the statistics, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt. But anecdotally, when my partner and I travel to the nearest city, which is about 20 minutes away, and you just take a stroll through pedestrianized streets, shopping districts, and so on, the shop doors have sleeping bags and makeshift boxes and tents and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's again, anecdotally speaking, there's a pretty serious homelessness problem. So yeah, it's a terrible thing, and it just, yeah, I don't know much about it, I'm afraid, but yeah, anecdotally, there seems to be a pretty serious homelessness problem in the UK as well.
See, this is one of the reasons I love getting Dara on, because even when he's not trying to, or I assume he's not trying to, but he might be, I learned something, because it's not a homeless problem, it's a homelessness problem. And there's a subtlety about English language as to where you're putting the onus. I recently did a video calling out the Freedom from Religion Foundation for posting an apology that did not apologize and did not include the words "I'm sorry" or "we're sorry." Was not an apology. It was clearly them attempting to make amends for it, but they also include a sort of blame the reader line where they're talking about this was misunderstood to be, or however they phrased it. And that puts the onus on the reader for the problem when it should be on the communicator for the problem. If I say there's a homeless problem, it sounds like I'm saying it's the people that are the problem instead of the condition that is the problem. And so even if that wasn't your intent, or even if this isn't how you got to that, maybe it's a curiosity of across the pond talking versus speaking. I think it's good to maybe work to change that. So when we're talking about the problem, we're talking about the problem of homelessness, not the problem of homeless or being homeless or the people. So cool.
Yeah, you're quite right to notice that it wasn't intentional. I wasn't intending on making some great moral point with my use of language there. It is just the way that the problem is described in this part of the world. Perhaps those who dreamt up the term I used were thinking along the lines that you just described, Matt. And I think it is a very interesting distinction that you've noticed there.
It could well be. In any case, I like the improvement no matter where it came from. And if it was intentional, cool. And if it was unintentional, I'm still going to make changes. Let's take turns reading these. I'll start off. $20 from Heisenberg. Hey guys, as an Australian firefighter, I know the heartache wildfires cause. To see this in the middle of your winter is an increasing worry of climate change. Hope this donation helps. Thank you so much. We were talking before, and I wasn't going to speculate about what the actual cause was. In the Los Angeles area, they're experiencing incredibly high winds, and the area is typically dry. The temperature isn't hot enough to necessarily start a fire on its own, but a lightning striking a tree or dry grass could start it. Somebody chucking a cigarette butt out the window could start it. A wiring problem in one person's house could start it. The issue here is that the winds then spread it. And this is evident. This is going to be huge. There are entire areas. You could not only see the fire and the smoke from satellite images, which I encourage people to go look at. If for nothing else, then you can marvel at the technology and how clear and how big this is. This is Los Angeles. All the northern section of Los Angeles essentially is on fire. I'm not sure. If I had to speculate, this is going to be a bigger catastrophe than probably any earthquake in California in recent memory. Might have to go back to, was it 1909 maybe? I don't know. But I'm just guessing. Somebody will come up with data soon. But this, at least from what I've seen, is just absolutely terrifying. And watching people I know struggle. As a reminder, when we're done with all the super chats and we're doing the wrap up, Arden can put the images back up of how to donate while we're doing that. But thanks, Heisenberg. This one's yours.
$9.99 from Greg Markowski. Thanks for the show. I'll send a few bucks to the CA Fire Relief as well. Thanks very much, Greg. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm sorry you weren't first today, but second's good too. $200. Wow.
Good grief.
From Eddie and Unson. It's my birthday, and I'd like to put a smile on your faces if possible. Best birthday gift, aside from seeing Matt and Dara together, would be to see Dara briefly explaining 3 logical fallacies of his choice in his best Mickey Mouse voice, and for Matt to do likewise in his best Goofy voice. Okay. Let's do
Good
this.
grief. While you're typing, I'm just going to get mine out of the way because this is humiliating no matter what. But I'm happy to do it for the $200 that Etienne submitted. So here we go.
Go for it.
Right, but I'm not going to do 3 logical fallacies. I'll do one because this is going to be so bad already. Okay, Matt, name a logical fallacy, and hopefully it's one that I can explain.
Post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Okay. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. I'm never going to get through this as Mickey Mouse. Is after this, therefore because of this. So post hoc. How am I going to do this? This is not.
I'm so glad they gave you Mickey Mouse.
Oh,
by the way, this is going to be the new challenge. TACIS has got the make somebody defend stuff. We're going to add a challenge to the hang up. Arden, get ready. Where you can send in a super chat of X amount or whatever and make us describe a logical fallacy in a funny voice or defend something in a funny voice. We'll just do it. All right. So you got that one done.
So I'll finish it. I feel a sense of completion. I have to finish it. So, a good example of post hoc ergo propter hoc is I prayed for something and it happened. Therefore, the prayer was the thing that made it happen.
That's really good,
yeah,
Mickey.
You got the goofy. Thanks, Goofy.
I thought I would go ahead and describe the ad hominem fallacy. And that's when you say that something is wrong, something is false, because the other person's stupid as fuck. Oh, no, I didn't mean to say that. I mean, you're wrong because you're goofy, not because you're me, because you're goofy silly. You did something wrong. You're a terrible person, and therefore your argument is wrong. That is a fallacy.
Well, that's
as good as I can get for goofy. And while we're not going to give you a full 3 right now, just because we would be, if this bit falls flat, while I greatly appreciate your contribution, I would need more time to be able to do this. But
that was a pretty good Goofy, but I feel like you owe the chat a good yuck. You know, Goofy always does the yuck. You gotta give us a good one.
I did that at the start. I thought I tried that at the start. I don't know. I can't quite get my denture's getting in the way of being a good.
It's perfect.
When I woke up this morning, I did not think that this is how my day would turn out.
Yeah, I did not expect that either. We'll do more another time. And I'm serious. Arden and I were talking about potential challenges for the show. I think explaining logical fallacies and other things in a goofy voice, not always goofy, in a put-on voice, might be fun.
So, a $10 super chat from Raymond Burnett. I know it's not much, but at the moment, money is tight. Hope it helps. Goodness, Raymond, any amount is amazing. So thank you very much for your generosity. That's very kind of you.
While I greatly appreciate Etienne's birthday gift, some gave more. And so if money's tight, by all means, it's greatly appreciated. But definitely don't be donating if you're in financial straits. Participating, showing up to the shows, engaging in chat, clicking like, subscribe, clicking the links below. All of those boost the algorithm and may wind up being even more valuable to the channel in promoting it than, a monetary gift might be. I appreciate it either way. And I appreciate the fact that even with money tight, you value what we're doing here. That's overwhelming. And we are as impressed and grateful for your gift as we are for Etienne's. $50 from Tammy B. Nice to see Dara for my first time. And I want to thank Matt for so much I'm learning from him. Thank you. Well, thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you, Tammy. $9.99 from Olivia Sullivan. Reminder to US trans folks, don't avoid taking actions toward healthcare or legal because of the incoming Republican Majority. Is that? Majority, forgive me. Majority government legislation takes time to happen and even more time to take effect.
Yep. And there are things that are going to have to be fought by people engaging in the proper current procedure so that when it changes, you have a foundation on which to stand to say, here's where this change has impacted me negatively and wrongly, and that's why there's a problem with the law. Do your best to keep going in your life and being you. $10 from Mr. Boricua. 10. Why does it seem like we're screaming iceberg ahead and no one is acknowledging a goddamn thing? It's impending doom and we're about to cross the stick. Seriously, bloody take action, you mooks. I don't know what mooks is. Did I just say something that's just offensive?
Sounds dodgy, doesn't it? That definitely doesn't pass the smell test. Good grief.
I just read them. I don't write them. So sometimes these people are going to make me say shit I don't know. But anyway, I will trust you, Mr. Boricua. I agree with you. As somebody who's been sounding a number of alarms for years.
I've Googled it if you're interested. A mook, according to Google, is a slang term for a foolish, insignificant, or contemptible person.
I thought you said or cunt because you said contemptible. And I was like, I don't tend to use the word cunt on the shows at all.
It's a good word.
I know it's liberally used in the UK, and I will hasten to use it a little bit. Like when I was over there and I was doing the show, there were a couple of women who were at one of the shows that I did in England. And after the magic show was over with, they came up and they said, you could say cunt and it wouldn't bother us. I was like, that's good to know. But
the word just has completely different currency in this part of the world. Like people use it as a term of endearment. Like they'll say, oh, you're a funny cunt, or you're an adorable cunt. Like it just has completely different sensibility about it in this part of the world.
Fortunately, while I don't have any problem with the word, I know people who do, and I don't need the word, so I generally avoid it. But man, was it funny hearing you say, contemptible, and pause after the C word popped out. I was like, what?
That wasn't intentional either. $9.99 from LA Silver Surfers. Just a donation, no text with that. So thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
And if you're actually in LA as well, I hope you're safe. $10 from Squidward Q Sagan. Never stop being yourself. Less than 3. I know it's a heart. I gotta have fun.
Less than 3. I've never heard that. How have I never noticed that in the past? Oh my God, I'm stealing.
You don't hang out with me enough. I'm a weird motherfucker.
That's brilliant. I love that. I think this is your one, right? Or did I?
Well,
no,
I just read the never.
You just read the list. Never mind. I'm starting to fail. $10 from Zurith Moonpaw. I made a roasted barbecue chicken, broccoli sautéed in drippings, and mashed potatoes today for dinner. I hope you and everyone a good warm meal tonight. I hope you and everyone have. I'm assuming they meant have a good warm meal tonight.
What I want to know is, I appreciate the contribution.
Yeah, it's very kind.
I appreciate the contribution. Why didn't you invite me to dinner? Because I like barbecue chicken and I like broccoli sautéed in drippings, and I love mashed potatoes. I can even eat the mashed potatoes and probably even the broccoli as long as it's soft enough. It's just disappointing that you want to tell me what you ate, but not, share it. I'm kidding. I had potatoes.
We don't call them potatoes in Ireland. We call them spuds.
Spuds. I called them taters growing up.
Call
But
them
also,
spuds.
I had spicy pork tamales for dinner. And I'll probably have some other stuff later. 10 euros from Yordim. What do you think about Matthew 5:17-20? That's in the Sermon on the Mount. I'd have to look up specifically what it is. Do you think the laws of the Old Testament are still in charge? There seem to be other verses like Hebrews 8:13, Galatians 2:24-5, and Mark 7:18 and 19 that seem to say otherwise. So, without having the time to go through an entire, I have a video on my channel that goes through the Sermon on the Mount in detail. If you haven't seen that, it might well be, worthwhile to
Matt,
to take a look at that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the not a jot or tittle of the old law shall be forgotten? Is that the quote we're talking about here, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, but the problem is, you're not mistaken. The problem is that when you look at that passage, Christians have come up with a number of different potential understandings of it, because obviously they want to keep some of the old laws. Thou shalt not kill. Yep. But they want to get rid of some others, like you can't eat shellfish and you can't wear mixed fabrics. And so when Jesus says not a jot or tittle of the law shall pass away, what he's saying is, or what they're saying is that he's talking about a specific group of laws and not these other laws. The ceremonial laws can change, but sin is sin. And so I would have to go through that. Maybe I will cut and paste this out. And if I didn't already cover it in my videos about Sermon on the Mount, maybe I'll make a video specifically about this, but I don't have time to read them all and go into it here.
I think that would be a good video, Matt. That would be well worth it.
I may have already done it, but we'll find out.
So, $10 from Zurith Moonpaw once again. Don't wipe with comic books. They actually have decent characters and not some Mary Sue. Oh my God, is totally awesome and can do everything and is everywhere and is all loving and cool.
To be fair, I'm not going to wipe my ass with, like a limited edition comic, whatever. But, they print a gazillion of those things. So if I'm out in the woods and I happen to be reading, Powder Puff Girls comic or something, and I need some paper, that paper's going to get used. That said, I shouldn't have shit on comics. I should only shit on the Bible.
Yeah,
By
I
the
gotta
way,
admit, my inner nerd reacted negatively when you made the comic book reference as well, but I just pushed it deep down inside myself because it wasn't pertinent to the moment. But there's a nerd in me that went, no!
Just to get your team a slightly more thorough answer without going through all the verses, Hebrews 8:13 is actually in that he saith a new covenant, he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. That is not the same. The covenants aren't the same as the law. There's the Noahic covenant, the covenant with Noah, and there's the Abrahamic covenant, the covenant with Abraham. And not everybody is under those same ones. We're underneath, Gentiles underneath the Noahic covenant, and Jews are underneath the Abrahamic covenant. And Christians are underneath a Christ covenant, a Jesus covenant. That has nothing to do with the laws changing. I understand it might, but I'm giving you the apologetic. So. $10 from Moira Bannister. Andrew Chucklefuck, what a troll. Yeah. I'm not convinced that anybody was. Sometimes it's hard to tell who's a troll, who's being dishonest, and who's not. And you can't just do it from laughter. I understand nervous laughter and stuff like that. Without picking out anybody, I can say that just over the last 2 shows I've done here on the line, there are at least 2 people who I suspected were and I have no business armchair diagnosing anybody, but I had two people whose mannerisms and thought processes were at least consistent with someone who has a tenuous grip on reality and might be off of their medications. The way they spoke had those mannerisms. I hope they get some help. That's a difficult position to be in, because if you're sitting here and somebody's just being like unbearably irrational and unbearably avoiding every single fucking question you ask and just, it's very difficult to go, hey, is this person a troll? Or is this person seriously in need of some help and assistance? And I don't want to just sit there and say, you're a delusional fucking idiot, if in reality, they're just someone who's, temporarily disconnected from reality and it's like being drunk in some cases. Don't call when you're drunk. Don't call when you're off your meds. But how do you stop somebody from calling when you're drunk? How do you stop your exes from calling when they're drunk? Take the phone away is, I guess, the only thing.
How do you stop somebody from being a cunt?
There you go.
$10 for a monkey at a typewriter. Anytime I'm stuck between thinking a person is a troll, a moron, or a lunatic, I'm left with one question. Am I sure this is an or? Thrilled whenever we get Dara.
There you go.
You're great, sir. Matt's cool too. Thank you very much, monkey at a typewriter, and thanks for the donation. I appreciate the positive feedback.
And really good timing, because, it allowed me to, it came right after the troll one. So those two comments along with mine kind of fit together well. Whoops. I clicked too quick. I'm going to go back. $20 from Kia Star 67. Great show. Thank you. It's made better by your participation and contribution.
Thank you very much.
Yours and Dara's.
$50. Wow, thank you so much, Sarah. Is it Helis? Sarah Helis. As a lifelong atheist and child of a church hopper, what is spiritually? I'm assuming that's meant to say spirituality. I've never understood it outside of a group emotional experience. Please help theists or of the former. Looking forward to my stickers and mug. God, I really butchered that, didn't I? Thank you so much. That's such a generous donation, Sarah. That's very, very kind of you.
So I keep asking, what is spirituality? And I have yet to get an answer in 20 years of doing this, of anything that I find particularly useful and true that could apply to a number of people. But I can say there have been a number of fuzzy answers that were consistent with what I used to think spirituality was. I don't know where you're at on this, Dara. Do you have like any useful definition of spirituality or a common one that comes up when you're talking with believers?
No, my experience of the term is that it's utterly amorphous. It completely lacks utility. Words are meant to signify something. They're meant to pick out something, some kind of noun, something that's illuminating, something clarificatory. But as far as I can tell, spirituality is just you might as well say geschmoogle boogle.
It's part of the reason I came up with Fergal Burgle Minergal Burgle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I might have gotten that from one of your videos, Matt, truth be told.
That's all right, because I'm pretty sure I've mispronounced your name about 12 times because I'll alternate between Dara and Dara just on a whim with no fucking reason at all.
Both are fine, by the way.
Okay, I don't know.
But yeah, I just find the word to be utterly useless. Utterly useless.
Is this you or me? I guess it's me.
I think it's you, yeah.
$10 from the Raven 200. I love the way Dara says Kalam Cosmological argument. Great show, y'all. Jimmy, go take a Samoan spike from Umaga, then a stink face from Rikishi. I would not want to do that. And I watched a video, by the way, Raven. I watched a video just the other day of Stevie Richards talking about not Samoa Joe, not Rikishi, but Yokozuna. And the different ways that he would do his bonsai drop and how much damage he could actually do under the wrong circumstances. I've been watching a lot of wrestling content that's not wrestling, but is more like history of wrestling. So, Stevie Richards doing quite a lot. There's a lot of other old wrestlers that are coming on doing shoots on stuff. I watched some stuff from Honky Tonk Man and others. But I did, right before the show, WWE's Monday Night Raw is now on Netflix. And I believe, I may be wrong, I think this was the first week of it being on Netflix. And so they put on this huge show, and they had, I don't want to spoil it, I won't tell you who all was there showing up, but some of the biggest names ever. But I didn't watch the whole show. Matter of fact, I only watched about 2 minutes of it because I read an article that late in the show, Hulk Hogan shows up with Jimmy Hart. And of course, he's wearing his Real American Beer shirt, which is basically him saying, I hate trans people. I mean, that's what the whole t-shirt thing's about. He's a Trumper. He's old. He could barely walk out from backstage to the front without looking like he was going to fall over. And he got booed. He got booed as soon as he started on his shtick. And he got booed as soon as let me tell you, brother. And there's thumbs downing and boos. And trust me, this wasn't because he was a heel bad guy. This wasn't the reception that he or anybody else was looking for, because he's not relevant to any fucking storyline. He's never going to be, and he's not going to fucking wrestle. He can barely move. So they didn't bring him out to be a bad guy. He was supposed to be out there to celebrate as the first huge baby face of the company that led to the WrestleMania. And instead, he got fucking booed, which is exactly what that racist, dipshit, Trump-supporting, transphobic piece of fucking garbage deserves. But, I don't have strong feelings about wrestling anymore.
Just for Raven, before I read the next question. Are you ready, Raven? Kalam cosmological argument. There you go.
Oh.
So $10 from Zurith Moonpaw. I'd give you a place to stay if needed, and I could, Matt. In fact, I'd do it for most people. That's very kind of you to say, Zurith, and thank you
very
for
sweet.
the donation.
I can tell you that during the freeze, we did not have as many reptiles in our house at the time. But I've talked to people who had to deal with a big freeze. If there's another big freeze in Texas, we have friends who are reptile breeders. Our house is on the same grid as the airport. I didn't lose power at all during the great freeze of a couple of years ago. I didn't lose power at all. And so I've told some of our breeder friends that if they're in a position where they think there's a chance they could be losing some of their animals during that, just bring them over to the house. And by the way, they should come over too. I got a guest room. It's full of snakes, but you can stay in it. $10 for Monkey at Typewriter. One of the richest and most Christian countries in the world has one of the greatest homelessness problems in the developed world. That's the Christian love for you. They love to get you out of sight, because out of sight is out of mind. Here you go. You have to read this one.
$10 from B. Asha. Make Dara a regular on the line. Oh, that's very kind of you, B. Asha. That's super sweet. I really appreciate that.
Yes. I have zero objection. I mean, he can host my show whenever I'm taking a day off. I would love to see you and Promise do a show, actually, but 100. Awesome.
Good grief.
Just amazing. This is overwhelming, Tammy. Thank you so much. I was saving this for TACIS tomorrow, but I'm sure Arden will understand. Yes,
how dare you?
Arden understands. You don't want to be hashtag Team Arden. You want to be hashtag Team Matt. And that's the way it should be.
$20 from Godfrey N. Good. Aloha. There used to be a caller from Brazil that had his arguments logically debunked every week. He would call other atheist shows with the exact same debunked arguments. I always thought that was dishonest. Am I right?
Maybe.
I suppose it depends on the definition of dishonest. It's certainly persistent. It depends on whether or not the person was actually convinced, I suppose. If they feel like their argument wasn't debunked, then technically speak, if deception and lying and dishonesty is defined as intentionally doing something that is untrue, or presenting something that you know to be false, well, then they would have to be aware that it was false. If they, through their own poor reasoning or what have you, failed to see the wood for the trees when the fallacies and the nonsense was pointed out to them, then technically they're not actually doing something dishonest. And you know what? That actually makes me think of Craig once again. Maybe I'm being too quick to call him dishonest earlier, although I do think that there's a relevant difference between this example that Godfrey brings up and the author of an actual paper telling you that you got my paper wrong. So perhaps I shouldn't be so quick to retract the allegation of dishonesty. But yeah, we need to be careful about labeling people dishonest, I think. I think that's the take-home point here, Matt. What say you?
I used to be much more careful about it, but I'm happy to call people dishonest the instant there's clear dishonesty. So I got into an argument with Aaron Ra once or twice. Aaron and I have been a few arguments. We're really good friends. No big deal. Because he was saying that Ray Comfort is a liar because Ray presents arguments repeatedly that others have debunked. And I was pointing out that if Ray does not understand that they've been debunked, if Ray does not understand or agree that they're fallacious, then while he is foolish, that doesn't make him a liar. And I make a distinction between lying and dishonesty, because there's active intentional deception and lying. And then there's the kind of dishonesty where you can even be dishonest to yourself, where you are kind of lying by omission or lying by cherry picking. And so if your argument's been debunked and you would say, yeah, that argument's been debunked, but I'm going to use it anyway, now you are a liar and you are in the worst of the used car category. But if your argument's been debunked and you don't agree or don't understand and you keep presenting it, as Dara was saying, you may not be dishonest. Well, you might still be dishonest, because I would think that the onus is on you, once someone has said, here's the fallacy in your argument, to sit down and evaluate that beyond just nuh-uh. If your response to having a fallacy called out is just to say, nuh-uh, that is the dishonest thing. Repeating the argument is then derived from a dishonest interaction, and I think then inherits the dishonest property, but not lying. Hopefully that's clearer than mud. $10 from Godry and Good. I still have boxes of clothes that I couldn't give away after the Dillahunty Maui fire. Hopefully someone will distribute them in California. Mahalo. Thanks so much, Godfrey. I hope somebody finds use for them.
$10 from Chris. Challenge. Explain the begging the question or poisoning the well fallacy as Stewie Griffin or a valley girl. This is getting juicy.
I tell you, we should save this for Jimmy, because Jimmy does an excellent Stewie Griffin.
Well, I think I can do. When you say valley girl, are you like, oh my God, totally? Is that what you mean by valley girl?
Exactly. Like, when you say begging the question is a fallacy, what you're really saying is that the very thing you're trying to prove is assumed in the premise. Begging the question is just another way of saying it's totally not a virtuously circular argument, because that doesn't actually exist and stuff. It's totally tubular, and tubes are circles, and that totally tubular circular argument, that's like begging the question.
Hey girl, what are you even saying right now?
I don't know. Yes. We won't do poisoning the whale tonight. We'll save that for Jimmy. Because my Stewie is awful.
That's not bad. No, it's better than you think. It's not bad. I think this is you.
$10 from Aliashana Silverbow. Parallel lines have so much in common. It's a shame they'll never meet. You will know how infrequently I say this, but I love you. I love your super chats. I love the humor. I am incredibly grateful, and you make me laugh in one of my favorite ways more often than most people I know.
Can I ask, what's the hashtag YGH? Am I just being an idiot?
Yes. YGH is a hashtag that we made famous here because I don't know if you know this, but Arden's trans and hosts the Transatlantic Call-In show. And since we've been, partners for 3.5 years, I get called a lot of names. And one guy decided that he would just reply to something I posted by saying, "You're gay, homie." And so we took "You're gay, homie,"
yes.
and put it on coffee mugs and hooded sweatshirts. And I'm like, if you're going to be that dumb in your attack of me, I'm going to make bank off of it.
I love it.
I am going to turn you're gay, homie. I'm going to sit here and sip. By the way, Paul made me a coffee mug that says "Gotcha, Matt." I think I'm the only person that's got one because of a video that we did together where a Christian apologist just kept sipping out of a mug and thought he was calling me out on stuff. I've got and we took it, the "You're gay, homie" one. And last year for the Christmas mugs, we did one with a Santa hat that said "You're gay, ho, ho, homie."
That's fantastic. I love that. Is this me?
It is you.
Okay, $20 from Rob Lifton. As entertaining as it is to Heart Matt's attempt at an Irish... Yeah, it's got to be here. I'm going to start that again. As entertaining as it is to hear Matt's attempt at an Irish accent, I wonder if Dara could do an American accent. I realize we've got a number of accents here. Well, I just did a Valley Girl. So,
fair.
That's technically an American accent. So, like totally, I could totally do an American accent. Okay.
By the way, you're my favorite Dara, and I love Dara O'Brien. So
that's very kind of you.
I also used to love Stephen Fry, and now he's come out as homophobic as well. So I'm not love Stephen as much. So,
oh dear,
all of them can move up the list. $10 from Ben X. I noticed that a lot of politicians in different countries around the world have been trying to push their religious discrimination bills almost exactly word for word the same, and it's really scary. It is. And this is why we warned about the Heritage Foundation and the other Christian or pseudo-Christian fundamentalist evangelical think tanks that are actually about Christian dominionism. It's the reason why what's getting ready to happen in Canada is going to be almost a duplicate of what just happened in the United States. And I hope that it's not enough of a duplicate that they stupidly decide to become the 51st state and give up their health care and all that. I mean, it won't happen. It can't happen, but it can't happen the way they want to pretend that it could happen. It's just, I'm dumbfounded. And it's like, I don't know how many times you could say, look, like the person earlier who was like, we're sitting here yelling iceberg. Look, they are lighting the building on fire. You need to get out. And they're like, no, they're just warming it up so that we're not so cold.
Yeah, a friend of mine and I use this analogy of we're sat in a bar and the bar is on fire and everybody is just sipping on their beer or their wine and just nonchalantly enjoying themselves and ignoring the fire. And some people are even on fire and appear to not notice that their leg is in flames. And we're the only two people at the bar who are acknowledging the presence of the flames that are consuming us. And that's kind of what it's like right now. I mean, Roe v. Wade was overturned in the United States. You have Trump in office again, and you have a Supreme Court that's stacked with Trump-appointed justices and Republican justices overall. And people aren't seeing the lines aren't matching up for them. They don't see the connection between, Republican stacked Supreme Court and Roe v. Wade overturned and Trump now in office again. I mean, what's going to be abolished next? Gay marriage? Is contraception going to go out the window? I mean, I'm so sick and tired of people telling me that I'm being a sensationalist, alarmist, secularist or atheist when I articulate my concerns about theocracy, those people who say that are the people who are at the bar and not acknowledging that it's on fire. And I just don't know how we shake people out of that kind of, I don't know, is it apathy? I don't know, is it that they secretly are delighted about what's happening and so they're happy to just sit at the bar that's in flames? I don't know how to explain it, and perhaps I shouldn't try to psychologize it. All I know is that there's a very real problem, and those who aren't acknowledging it are part of that problem. Forgive the rant.
No, it's fine. 2154 from JC. Yup, hail Matt's shirt again. Why? We may never know. True. You may not know.
$10 from Jamnick06. What did the triangle say to the circle? You're pointless. I like jokes like that. That's got a very dad joke vibe about it, but I love dad jokes. So you're in good company.
Here we go. Final super chat of the day. Speaking of fire, I skipped one on purpose, honey. This one's from Jared Bear. A new brush fire has erupted in the Hollywood Hills and appears to be growing at a rapid speed. Los Angeles police and firefighters are responding. So that's the last super chat. Another brush fire has broken out, according to Jared. Arden's going to put up the information about how you can help out the people in Los Angeles through the Atheists United organization. 323-666-4258. They can receive texts. We're doing what we can to help promote the fact that they're putting up shelters and getting people showers and waters, places to relax. When I get more information about what's going on with some of the secular activists that you know and admire, people like Kevin Balling, people like Eddie Tabash, I will give updates when I hear things. Please take care of yourselves and help take care of each other. You guys are my wonderful Wednesday, the best part of my frustrated online living experience. Huge thank you to Dara for coming here today, being a part of the show. We will get you back again. We're going to get you back on Sunday. I'd get you back almost any time I could. Huge thank you to our call screeners, our moderators, every one of you who liked, subscribed, who listened, who clicked on the information to help promote the channel, and who donated both to us and to those organizations that are trying to help people in the wake of these terrible fires. Go to linemerch.com, go to patreon.com/calltheline, and don't forget we've got a major announcement coming up, so you need to be on Patreon, even as a free member, and you can do that at patreon.com.